What's PMP? Is that something Del made up, or is that actually something?
I thought that was just
PMA with. PMT with. Sorry,
PMT.
I'm getting confused. What did I say?
Hello and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny and I'm joined from Hong Kong by my co-host and sister Heather. Say hello, dude.
I am here.
Today we are discussing Series 6, Episode 5, Sickness and Wealth. So grab a bowl of muesli and let's get started.
This episode aired on the BBC at 7:15 p.m. on Sunday, the 5th of February, 1989. This week's viewing figures were all the way up to 18.2 million, which is the closest we've gotten to knocking the top episodes off their pedestals. We still have 18.8 million for Royal Flush and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire as the highest initial viewing figures, which is crazy. Same schedule again this week, still airing after Songs of Praise and followed by Mastermind. Something's Gotten Hold of My Heart by Mark Almond and Gene Pitney was still the UK #1 song, but a new movie was the top of the UK box office, Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis. So let's move on to a little trivia for this week, shall we, dude?
Okay, yes, let's do that. But before we do that, dude, can you tell me what are Delboy's two biggest fears?
Doctors and gods.
Oh, well done. This episode deals with the second of Del's two biggest fears, doctors. We already saw Del explore his fear of gods in The Miracle of Peckham. John Sullivan had been wanting to explore this side of Del for a while. The bravado to hide his fear, the awareness of his mortality, and also the reactions of his loved ones facing their own fears that they could lose their leader. This episode sees the first and only actual appearance of Albert's love interest, Elsie Partridge, who gets mentioned more than she appears. She is portrayed here by actress Constance Chapman, who died in 2003 at the age of 91. She was a seasoned screen and TV movie actress, perhaps best known for her roles in Born and Bred and The Avengers. That's the 1961 TV series and not the Marvel movie. Just like last week, this episode was filmed entirely in the studio due to the first 3 episodes of Series 6 using up all of the location budget allocation. I think it works pretty well here though, no need for any outside shots. Studio shooting dates were Saturday the 28th and Sunday the 29th of January 1989. Thanks again to Mike Jones for this little bit of trivia. John Sullivan was originally going to introduce Alan and Pamela Parry in this episode, but it did get pushed back to little problems. The room used for the seance was specially built at the back as the back room of the Nag's Head and was then used for the wedding reception and the Driscoll confrontation in the next episode, Little Problems. Marlene finally announces her pregnancy in this episode, which ends the ongoing infertility storyline we have had many references to over the last 2 series. The Simply Red song Holding Back the Years is famously played in an emotional scene in Little Problems, which, to my knowledge, never gets cut out. But the song It's Only Love, also by Simply Red, originally played in the Nag's Head in this episode when Rodney is talking to Albert and Cassandra before he goes to the hospital, and is cut out on all home media releases. More on that later. And finally, we get our second and last appearance of barmaid Nervous Nerys in this episode. Barmaids in general kind of end in this episode, as future episodes tend to just see Mike working alone behind the bar. And more trivia to come in the episode breakdown. Shall we move on to our episode rankings for this week, dude?
Yes, let's do that. Our regular listeners will know by now that each week we reveal and compare our rankings for the episode. And prior to recording the entire podcast, we independently ranked all 64 episodes. If you didn't know that, then you are not yet one of our regular punters, but we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast. We usually release a new episode every Saturday, although at the moment we've been releasing every 2 weeks because the episodes are 50 minutes. So we're sort of giving ourselves a bit more time, or giving me a bit more time to edit the episodes. But we really do need more subscribers. We are doing very well, but we'd like to have, obviously, the 1,000 on YouTube would be amazing if we can get to that. So please keep sharing our podcast with people that you think might be interested. And of course, your support on Buy Me a Coffee is also very much appreciated. We really appreciate all of the people that have supported us financially thus far. And all the links will be on the channel page and in the episode description for our social media. So, dude, this one, I think you've got this in your top 20.
That's right. It is in my top 20.
Okay.
How about you? Is it in your top 20?
It's in my top 20,
All right.
yes, as well.
Ooh, you know that we both have some of the same spots for you. I wonder if we've got a match on this one.
Oh, maybe.
Right.
Okay, do you want to guess mine or I'll guess yours?
Let's say them at the same time.
1, 2, 3.
16.
19. Oh, bollocks. Now they're different. Okay, so for those of you that couldn't hear, mine is 19 and Jenny's is 16.
Yeah, and Fran.
Oh, so close.
Fran has it as her number 10.
Oh,
So-
wow, this one's really high for Fran. Okay.
So for us, they're all in the top 20, pretty similar to each other, and the outlier here is IMDb. I'm pretty surprised by this, but IMDb's ranking for this one is 35. So low.
Oh, wow, that is low. I'm surprised.
Yeah, although I do think a few people, when they messaged about how much they love Series 6, said, oh, apart from maybe one of the weaker episodes like Sickness and Wealth. And quite a lot of people do say Sickness and Wealth is the weakest episode of Series 6. Clearly, I don't think that, unless that is my lowest ranked Series 6 episode. But I don't think it's a weak in any way. It's certainly not a weak link, not in my view.
No, I mean, do you want to talk about why you like this episode first then?
I mean, again, Series 6 is our most nostalgic one. We watched this one a lot when we were kids, but I do really love this episode for the fact that it is a nice balance of comedy and serious subject matter. I like exploring Del's vulnerable side. I think the seance and the doctor's office scene are both absolute crackers.
Yeah, agreed.
In terms of short scenes of high comedy. So, yes, I know it does have some negative sides to it, and obviously we see Del ill, which might not be fun for everybody, but I think it's just a really nicely written and really great episode that has a great pace and some really funny scenes. I guess I don't even think it's weak, but I'll mention this when we do this. The first scene is very long.
Yes.
I'll mention this in the breakdown. So maybe a few people don't like that because it's so long. But
I mean, I have a fondness for those scenes in the flat where it's just the trotters chatting.
Yeah, me
like
too.
I have all the way back to Watching the Girls Go By. It was one of the reasons I said I love that episode, because it's like an episode where they're just sitting in the flat chatting for a lot of it. And I agree with everything you just said. I think that this episode has a lot of variation in it, which is something I really like. Like you said, we've got, the doctor scene is almost like a standalone sketch of a guy going to a doctor who's nervous of going to a doctor.
It could be in like Monty Python,
like a sketch show.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And same for the seance scene. You could almost put that on its own as a sketch. Like, it's, as you said, they're sort of these standout scenes. And I think that all the other stuff around it is very meaningful, actually. I really love the vulnerability, again, going back to the strained relations, which is another episode that I really like. It's that it gives David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst this opportunity to kind of push themselves on a different level, that vulnerability, that emotion that their characters so often aren't allowed to show. And I think that that's another reason I actually really like this episode. I think this is the first episode we actually see Del cry. I know he almost does in Strained Relations, but this is the first time we actually see him cry. And I actually love that. That's very memorable for me. And I actually even love the character of Dr. Meadows. I think he and Del have this lovely chemistry. I almost wish there was more of them, together, because I think they have this really nice, this on-screen chemistry. And then I also like the way that all the side characters are, again, kind of woven in. I know we're missing Denzel in this episode, and we only get a very small part from Mickey and Jevon. But even so, it's nice to see them always popping up in the episodes now. The side characters, of course, Boise gets a huge character development, as does Marlene, as you mentioned in this episode. So I think it's just really... And Mike has a lot in this episode too, which is really nice. So yeah, I think it's a strong episode. It's got some really funny moments as well. Obviously, we can talk about the controversial joke that has not aged well, but everything else, I think, has aged well, and I think it's still very funny to watch. That's just my opinion. You know which joke I'm talking about, right, dude? You look confused.
I'm not confused by what you mean. I mean, I'm not confused about what joke you're talking about. I guess I have a lot to say about it later in my... I know there's lots of people that have made comments about it, but... Just in case anyone's inclined to switch off right now thinking that we're going to criticize it, I am not going to criticize it at all. So just in case anyone's listening and thinks that is not my opinion of it. So, I agree with everything you said too. I mean, I was trying to look for the criticisms that I know I've read, and I guess I must have skated over some of them. Just people think this is not the strongest episode, and the reason that it's 35 on IMDb, I'm not quite sure, because a lot of people do agree that series 6 is a very strong series. So yeah.
Well, I suppose if you are comparing it to, some of the other episodes in series 6, obviously we talk about, I've got Yuppie Love lower than this in my rankings, but
right.
Yuppie Love is obviously a famous episode for the famous bar scene. And then Danger UXD is my favorite episode. So of course, this is going to be lower than that.
Yeah.
And The Unlucky Winner is as well, we've got very high up. So yeah, it's got a lot of competition. Maybe that's why it's fell lower, because people compare it to the rest of the best season of Only Fools and Horses in most people's opinion. But it's still a great episode. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be very interested to read what most people's rankings are this week in the comments, and what criticisms you might have of this episode, because there's clearly something about this episode that makes it less popular with fans, but that did not happen to us.
No, of course not. Although I didn't understand any of the medical stuff when I was a kid, all that stuff in the hospital when they're talking about, no, not that. I had no idea what they were saying. Of course, now I do.
The only thing I remember as well, that when we were kids, like, Dad used to want to watch this episode a lot because our other sister had IBS and he thought it would help us understand it more. But yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more, because obviously, IBS is a real condition. I'm not sure if I think it's a great representation of IBS, but yeah, we'll talk about that more.
I have some questions about IBS as well during the episode breakdown, based on, as you said, our sister's diagnosis, like, that I remember.
Yeah,
of it.
But bearing in mind that it's an extremely common illness, often misdiagnosed, and can present with hundreds of different symptoms and can be very unique to the individual that's suffering from it. So you can't really pigeonhole it. And if you have it, go see the doctor, for God's sake. Don't be a wuss. Or if you suspect that you have it.
Don't wait for a seance with your mom to convince you to go.
Right.
So, with all that said, shall we go ahead and start the episode breakdown, dude?
Yes, okay, let's do that. Okay, so we begin in the Trotter flat, and overall this scene is a strange one because the flat is all steamy, and it seems to us at first to be evening time. I don't know if we really know. I can't remember whether we find out what time of the day it is. But yeah, it's got to be before dinner, right? So because
it's only just before dinner, because Estelle's going out for a vindaloo, but then Albert says, you came in tonight, you collapsed in the chair. So it does seem to be later than nighttime, but earlier than dinner.
Oh yeah, and they have the curtains like completely closed this whole scene, and also because it's all steamy, I always remember this feeling like a weird kind of atmosphere, because there's constant whirring of the spin dryer in the background for most of the scene too.
R2D2 breakdancing.
So I'll make this point before I start the breakdown. The scene is just over 14 minutes long, which is over a quarter of the episode. So it doesn't seem that long when you're watching it. And I think that is because the technique of having the three characters exiting and re-entering the scene multiple times is a very clever writing method. And I never think I noticed it before, but as I was writing it, I was like, now it's Albert and Rodney alone. Now it's Del and Albert. Now it's Del and Rodney. It's like, you probably notice it more now because of this breakdown. You'll notice it if you hadn't already. But I wonder if it was reworked to account for the fact that they had to studio bound the whole episode. Because at what point did they know that they ran out of location budget and now they had to film every single scene in the studio? Was the scenes written that were not in the studio and they had to be like, oh shit, we need to just put all this now into one scene in the flat? So it's quite possible.
Possibly,
yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, and I haven't read anything about any script changes. And because it was all filmed so tightly together, I wonder if there would have even been time. But as we talked about in The Unlucky Winner Is, they did have to make a lot of changes at the last minute to account for the fact that they couldn't shoot on location. So, yeah, I think it's possible with the fact that this scene is so long that maybe some of this dialogue was meant to be in separate locations and stuff, and they maybe crammed it all into one scene. But anyway, we open on Rodney on the blower to Cassandra, and Del is asleep in the chair. I think I mentioned this before, but both Nick Lyndhurst and David Jason are very good at the one side of the phone call acting, where they leave the right amount of space between lines to make it believable as being a real conversation on the phone. So this is quite a long conversation on the phone that Rodney's having. It's a huge chunk in the script, and we get a lot of information from it. So Rodney is bored stiff. He's stuck in the flat. He wants to get dinner with Cassandra. She's busy studying. We learned that Del has been having stomach pains and that Albert has bought a new spin dryer. So a few lines to pull out here. Rodney says...
Yeah, so at the moment, it's jumping around the kitchen like a Dalek with St. Vitus dance.
So another Doctor Who reference and another mention of St. Vitus dance, which we heard about in To Hull and Back when they were exiting the harbour. So that's the condition characterised by involuntary jerking movements, which I'm doing now to demonstrate them.
Yeah, I'm sure that's really useful on a podcast.
So Rodney mentions here that Elsie Partridge is coming round to spend the evening with Albert. We heard him mention her in The Unlucky Winner Is, but so that's 2 episodes in a row. And then Rodney accepts a tea invitation to spend time with Cassandra's parents. So just some important reminders that their relationship is going very well so far and that he's spending time with her parents. So at the end of the conversation comes and Rodney is nervous that Del can overhear, but he checks first.
Delboy. You know I love you. Cool, don't I tell you often enough? Do you love me? Oh, yeah, very funny, Cassandra. I'm laughing this end as well. All right, I'll see you tomorrow then. Okay, bye.
It's very sweet, and Rodney makes Rodney seem very sweet and vulnerable with her, which is nice.
Yes. I always thought these kisses were more like little old lady kisses. I thought Del's kisses were more romantic.
Mwah.
So
Yeah.
there's kind of like very lippy kisses and not sort of smoochy kisses.
Little old lady kisses.
Yeah, like purse lips kisses when you don't want to kiss someone.
What do you want him to do? Like kiss the phone? Oh, I don't know.
Like Del did. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
So as soon as Rodney is off the phone, Albert comes shuffling out of the kitchen, followed by a huge cloud of steam, and he's gotten some Chinese food he starts dishing up. There's a bit of banter here between them, and I notice Albert points out Rodney's sarky mood, which I know is your favourite version of Rodney, dude.
I literally wrote, Albert says, I hate you when you're in that sarky mood. I love when Rodney's in that sarky mood. That's
Yeah.
what I wrote.
It's great that he is in your favourite mood. So
Yes,
Albert
just for those couple of lines.
So Albert leaves to get the knives and forks, and Rodney continues to work on his computer at another very awkward angle that I could point out. His computer makes a funny noise, and Del wakes up and thinks it was him.
Sorry, excuse me.
So Del gets up here saying he's fine for the first time, but we can just see that he is in pain just from his movements. I think you can see his body language. Here he goes into the kitchen and demands to know why Albert bought the spin dryer. Now we can assume... Can we assume, that Albert snuck this into the flat while Del was sleeping? Because how does Del not know?
It as well, yeah. I mean, if they just got a big gaping hole in their kitchen that they can put this in, I'm quite surprised.
Yeah, I don't know how he got it in there without Del knowing about it. Because either it was there when Del arrived home, or Del went to sleep and Albert came in with a spin dryer.
Yeah, so true.
But Albert does explain that he was just trying to save money, but then Del tells him it's the same one that he sold the bloke upstairs last week for £10. He says,
Why did you come and ask me about these things first?
Why didn't I bother you with you being ill?
Ill? I'm not ill. There's nothing wrong with me.
But you got that tummy trouble again.
Yes, I haven't got any tummy trouble. There's nothing wrong with me. I just got normal pains.
When you come in tonight, you flop straight down that chair in agony.
You don't understand, Unc. That is PMA.
I thought only women got that.
No, Rodney, that is PMP. PMA is positive mental attitudes. It's the new buzzword. It's what all us yuppies get.
So we see the yuppie stuff is back here, and Del is still very concerned about his image. He doesn't really dress yuppie in this episode, I don't think. He kind of dresses down a bit, but he's still talking about yuppie stuff. So it does kind of make sense. It's funny that he thinks PMA... Oh, that Rodney thinks he's talking about PMS when he's like, I thought only women got that.
I know. PMP.
No, Rodney, that is PMP.
What's PMP? Is that something Del made up, or is that actually something?
I thought that
you
was...
confused PMA.
I thought that was just
PMT with. Sorry, fucking hell, I'm getting confused.
PMT.
What did I say? Oh no.
I don't know if PMP has another meaning, but it's not PMS. Yeah.
PMS. That's what I was thinking of. Oh my god.
I don't know what PMP is. I didn't look that up, but I thought it was just Del saying PMS.
Yeah, presumably.
Here we see Del's first strong stomach pain that makes him double over in pain. This continues throughout the episode. So now Rodney runs away to get the Andrews liver salts, which gives Del and Albert the chance to have their conversation about the flat. Now we basically pick back up from Yuppie Love here because if we remember, Del applied to buy the flat so he can sell it. And Albert has grabbed a letter from the council housing department and he thinks that that's what it's about.
No, it is not about them letting us buy this flat. It's about them evicting us from this flat.
Evicting us?
Shh, keep your voice down, will ya? Gordon Bennett, you'll have the whole lot. Don't want Rodney to hear any of this.
So Del has gotten up here and closed the door. Rodney's going to take a very long, convenient amount of time to get the Andrews liver salts so they can have this conversation.
I've got to say that I can't believe they haven't been in this situation before, considering the amount of times they would have been broke, that they haven't been sort of close to eviction before. It seems like that would be unlikely.
Yeah, you can actually pull a few quotes out where they've said they owe 2 months rent. I'm not sure if it's ever been 2 months, but here he says 3, right? I don't know how long the council usually gives you in leeway. Maybe somebody does know that, but there have been times when they haven't paid. And then also they do say in Yuppie Love the rent arrears, which means paying back the rent after it was owed. So it's not unusual for Del not to pay the rent, but this is the first time that John Sullivan has actually broached the subject of them potentially getting evicted from the flat, which I think does make sense as a really good stressor for Del and something that he would try to hide from Rodney. So yes, I wrote here, I think this discussion already tells us that the stress levels are super high, and nowadays, in perhaps these more modern times, anybody watching this can tell that stress is likely what's causing Del's illness if you watch this, because there's a lot more focus these days on stress and mental health. But it wasn't as readily accepted back then that mental issues can cause physical symptoms. It's still not widely accepted now, I wouldn't say, not in the older generation. Which I think is what represented well by Albert and even Del in this episode. That kind of like, come on, don't be silly. Like when Albert thinks it's okay to eat a bacon sandwich while you're fasting. Like that kind of attitude was very prevalent then. Just like, oh, you know, don't worry about it. What harm is that going to do you? But nowadays, people do accept that if you maybe are suffering from anxiety or have a mental illness, that could cause you to have a stomachache. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, IBS is by some people not accepted as a real condition. So it was even harder to diagnose and treat back then. But anyway, once Rodney is safely out of earshot, Del confides in Albert that he hasn't paid the rent on the flat in the last 3 months. He explains that everything has been going wrong lately, but Albert points out that he's still drinking in the wine bars, going down the curry houses, and Del counters and says that is all on Slate, which we hear about from Mike later in the episode as another stressor for Del. And this is the series where the slate really becomes like its own character, because we've always known that Del like had free stuff from Mike, but the slate continues from now all the way till the end, and it's even in that very famous scene after Del becomes a millionaire.
I think for a brief time when I was a kid, I thought that meant that it was on Slater. Like Roy Slater, because I think when I was a kid, I vaguely remember thinking that, like, oh, Slater's gonna pay for everything, like, because obviously I didn't understand that Slater was I mean, I was really young when I watched this. In my defense,
yes, you need a defense for that thought.
Well, I didn't know what a slate was. Little me, all confused watching.
It's a slang term.
Go easy on me.
I mean, it's a very, it's a colloquial and a very British term. So, if in case anyone is listening and they don't know what it is, it just means that Mike is keeping a tab. But I don't know if Mike actually has it written down anywhere, because
I doubt it. No, I mean, he sort of calculates in the next scene, like, you've had this, but he doesn't actually know. You're quite right.
Yeah, and there's also like a funny bit later where Rodney just gives Mike a couple of coins for the drinks and just goes like, that's all I've got.
That'll do.
And Mike's like, that'll do. So like we know that they have a friendship relationship where perhaps there's a lot of negotiation and like, oh yeah, I'll just take like this amount for this.
Well, I mean, that's kind of seen again in Modern Men, isn't it? When they're doing the rounds of drinks and he's like, call it 25 quid. Like he doesn't actually calculate the price of the drinks. Yeah. He just says, call it this, and then he takes that, God,
Del does not know how lucky he is, to have someone like that giving him the drinks on cheap like that.
Very true.
But anyway, I put here that I think we get a sense here that this is a bit more serious than some of their usual plights when Del says,
Don't worry about it. I haven't had a decent night's kip for the last 2 weeks worrying about it. It's with me everywhere all the time.
And he grabs his stomach again. And I added a little note here that Del says, you cow son, which I always thought was cow and son, two separate words. But
that's what I thought it was. Is it not that?
No, so I noticed in the script that it's one word, so I looked it up. And Wiktionary says, slang, chiefly South London, archaic, an objectionable, contemptible, unfortunate or stubborn person, place or situation, sometimes used ironically or humorously. Bastard, git, that cow son owes me £5. And then the funny quote that was there was, Millwall lost again. What a cow son. I thought that was quite funny. I was like, I've got to put that in.
That is quite funny.
Sounds like something that Del would say. But anyway, yeah, always thought that he was saying, you cow.
I always thought it was, you cow son.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too. I didn't realise it was one
I'm
word.
sure everybody who knows that cow son is a word now is laughing at us, but I didn't know that was a word.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, it does say it's archaic, so why would we know? But anyway.
Yeah, we're not archaic.
No. When he doubles over in pain, again here we get our first doctor discussion, which is a massive theme of this episode. So Albert is trying to coax Del here to go and see Dr. Meadows. And Rodney even resorts to mocking Del a little bit here.
Well, he won't go to the doctors, though, will he? Because he is terrified of doctors.
Look, I am not terrified of doctors. The reason I'm not going to see Dr. Meadows is because there's nothing wrong with me. You're winding me up, Rodney.
I just wondered, because it sounds here in this conversation like Del doesn't know Dr. Meadows very well. Like, Albert's like, you can go to that guy, Dr. Meadows. He's like a mate. Like, he's telling Del about Dr. Meadows as though he doesn't know him. But later on, it's like they've known each other for ages really well, and they went down the 111 club together and everything. I just thought that was a bit weird.
I think it's just, it's inconclusive here, whether you think it sounds like Del knows him, because Del's getting frustrated, so he's just like, I don't want to go see no Dr. Meadows. I mean, it does sound like he doesn't know him. You're right, but...
Yeah, if you say no, if I said, I don't want to see Dr. Meadows, like, no Dr. Meadows is like who that random guy, Dr. Meadows, you just mentioned.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe just because he was frustrated. I think it's important to note that Albert knows Dr. Meadows, because later he breaks the law by giving all of Del's personal information over the phone to Dr. Meadows, and it's good to know that Albert is actually someone who knows Dr. Meadows, and he didn't just give it to some rando.
Well, what happened to their family doctor?
Yeah, I did note that later. Where's Dr. Becker?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's good that he's not in this episode.
Yeah, but he's been the family doctor for a long time.
He's got legs like the Jinsky. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. He's been the family doctor for years.
Yeah, he looked after Mum.
Yeah, it seems weird that he doesn't go and see Dr.
I don't know.
Dr.
Yeah,
Becker.
maybe John Sullivan decided he wanted like a more young, fun doctor in this episode. But yeah, he doesn't even mention Dr. Becker in this episode.
I don't.
Now, who is the chairman of the Tenants Association these days? Anyway, forget Dr. Becker. Okay. Rodney should not have poked Del in this situation, because now Del reveals that he was actually awake during Rodney's private conversation after all, and we get a nice double take moment from Nicholas Lyndhurst here.
No, he's seeing her tomorrow night for tea.
That's right. Her mum and dad said I could... You cunning gits! You was earwigging my conversation.
Of course I love you, Cassandra. I tell you often enough, don't I? Mwah, mwah, mwah.
That is out of order, Derek.
So Albert's face and head wiggle here is absolutely hilarious when Del's doing the impression.
If they'd never made a bobblehead of Albert, they really should have. He's like the one character that was practically a walking bobblehead.
He's got
as a human, let alone a bobblehead toy.
Yeah, he does have a great bobblehead, and just the way that they both mock Rodney here is really funny.
I mean, I think I always think of Albert's most iconic bobblehead moments probably in Miami Twice. They're both safe and sound.
Yeah. Yeah. So here Del goes into the kitchen, not sure why, and he goes in for quite a while, so he's going to get like steamed. But now we get that moment with just Albert and Rodney alone to talk, and this is where the discussion of the haunted bathroom comes up. So this is a very funny tangent that really comes to nothing, but it is just a way of bringing up that Elsie Partridge is a medium. There are some great lines here, though, and here's some of my favourite ones.
When you're in the shower, don't you feel there's someone else there with you?
Yeah, but there usually is. It's either Del having a shave or you doing your toenail.
I find that quite funny, the thought of Rodney being in the shower and then like them both being there with Rodney in the... Like, I just find that I didn't think of them like that kind of family sharing the bathroom to the point where they'd be naked in front of each other. I don't know why I didn't think that. It's just, interesting.
Men do that, I think. I don't think it's a big deal.
I don't know. I thought women were more inclined to do that than men.
I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you go to the toilet while your roommate is in the shower. I just thought that men didn't care at all about stuff like that.
Comments, please tell us.
But Del comes back in, and I think this is a really great moment as well when they have a conversation where Rodney says,
When you're in there, right, do you ever get a feeling that you're not alone?
What do you mean, like as if there's somebody in there with you?
Yeah.
What a sort of strange feeling.
Yeah.
Like as if you're being watched.
Yeah.
No, why, do you?
No. 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 Oh, it's Albert reckons he's possessed.
Possessed? Do me a favour. Give us a couple of months, it might be repossessed if you like.
But I did notice that he makes that joke. It would have been better if he'd said that to Albert because he told him not to tell Rodney about the problem. And I guess Rodney does sort of shrug that off. But yeah, it is actually true.
Well, he's probably so used to Del sort of just throwing it out there casually that they've got no money and they could lose their home that he doesn't even, get flinched anymore
anyway, this
when that happens.
Shouldn't make me laugh as much as it does, but it does. Albert comes back in and declares,
Elsie Partridge is a medium.
Is she? Well, you better whip that round to her then. That'll fit her a treat, that will, I'll tell you.
Dude, you're not alone because David Jason looks like he's going to laugh when he says that line as well.
I actually forgot to bring up the dresses. The dresses are hanging up all around the apartment, and it is mentioned.
And they're hideous.
Yeah, it's mentioned in the first scene that Rodney's been trying to sell them, I think. Sorry, in the first clip of dialogue, right? That he's selling the dresses. So, yeah. Del grabs one of the dresses and wants to get Elsie in it. And I actually think it would be a good dress for Elsie.
Yes.
It's a very Elsie Partridge dress.
Yeah, I was going to say, I look at that dress and I think Elsie Partridge. Yes,
Yeah.
not just because she's a medium.
But anyway, Albert continues to tell Del and Rodney about Elsie's history as a medium, and Del brushes it off mostly, but as he starts to leave the room, he comes back in.
Thousands of pounds?
Hey?
You said they paid that Elsie Partridge thousands of pounds.
Yeah, she never took a penny of it, Del. She used to send it to the Battersea Dogs Home. I bet she wished she'd kept some of it now. She's only got her pension to live on.
Yeah, nice mention of the Battersea Dogs Home again.
Battersea Dogs Home.
Hello, Battersea Dogs
Battersea
Home.
Dogs Home.
We need to stop doing that, crew. Anyway, Del has a plan to help in this dire situation. It sounds like he wants to partner with Elsie Partridge. Despite Rodney and Albert discouraging the idea, he seems very pleased with it, but he then does get another stomach pain.
I do believe that this is God sending me a sign. Oh, God!
Come and sit down, Del.
Oh,
What can I get you?
yeah, pina colada with lots of ice.
And that line ends the scene. So, dude, what notes do you have on that nice long intro scene?
This is the first time we ever see Del ill,
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah, not injured. Yeah, we see him injured. This is the first time we see him
Yes.
ill, right? Apart from when he's
first time
fake
we see him
ill.
like, with a stomachache. Oh, yeah, or when he says, get off, got a dake. I think, yes, this is the first time. I already mentioned how hideous the dresses are. It's not in this episode, but I really find it interesting. As you mentioned, Elsie Partridge, she's only mentioned like in a couple of episodes, and this is the only episode that she's actually in. But I find it interesting that she's the person they decided to put Albert with in the later episodes, that he married her. Again, I don't know if you remember this. They talk about
I do
how,
remember
they
this, yeah.
reunited like after all these years, and it was like a love story. It's like they gave all this like lore to their relationship that is, not even mentioned here. And I just think it's really interesting that they put him with Elsie and not with Marlene's mum.
Well, it's good that they didn't put her with Marlene's mom because she's in the green grass.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why they didn't, because it was the final 3 episodes. Obviously, Buster Merrifield was already had already passed away by the time they filmed this.
Yeah, unless they wanted to say that she had died and she was like single again after he died.
Yeah, true. Is this the first time we hear dozy old twonk?
Mm-mm. Well, dozy little twonk was in the first episode, so is dozy old twonk
Dozy old
towards
twonk is
Albert,
something that they call Albert a few times, I think. You dozy old twonk.
I don't know. I think probably not, but I'm sure people will let us know when that was first said in the comments if you're thinking it's the first time.
Every time I hear one of the like known catchphrases, I always wonder, is this the first time? But then I say it every time.
I know,
so
and
maybe
then
not.
someone will be like, no, that was in Big Brother.
And so I just had a question. Del is going for a vindaloo later, but Albert's dishing him up a Chinese now.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point, isn't it? That it's just takeaway to takeaway. And you can go for a
Yeah, but it's
vindaloo
all
at
meant to be
like
in
1 in the
evening.
morning. Yeah, but you can go to vindaloos
Yeah, but-
really, really late.
I suppose. I just think, that's a lot of food to have sort of in one evening if he's going for
But
2.
he doesn't actually eat the Chinese, does he? Albert's just dishing it up.
No, but he does empty that spoon out of the thing into like the dish.
Oh.
It's horrible.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I meant to put that. He puts a scoop of the Andrew liver salts into his drink. Yeah.
Yes, and into the Chinese when he's like getting it off the spoon afterwards, and then it like drips into the Chinese spoon. And he puts it down.
Yeah.
I love how nonchalant his face is when he's stirring it in, and Rodney's just looking really shocked. It's very
I
funny.
don't know why Rodney's surprised by that.
No, I don't know either. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised by anything Del did. And yeah, I love the fact they're keeping Albert's superstitious nature sort of going as well after it being introduced in Danger UXT. And Albert even states that he's superstitious because he's a sailor, and sailors are superstitious, which is true. You know, this is a known trope. This is a known trope of sailors.
Trape.
I said it was really interesting that Rodney is very impressionable here with Albert when he's like convincing him there's a ghost. Like Rodney does seem to believe it, and it almost reminded me a little bit more of old Rodney. Like with the ashes. Rodney was more sort of, like, oh God, like more believe,
Well,
like
yeah.
he believed that stuff more and was more freaked out than Del was. And Grandad kind of got him into
And
that.
in the next scene, he's one of the ones that, like he agrees that he's one of the ones that
Yeah.
says not to mess around with the supernatural. So Rodney,
That's what I
Rodney does
mean. I
believe
find
in
that
it.
quite hard to believe. I'd have thought Del would have been more in keeping with that since he's got a fear of gods. Like that he would have been more sort of like, don't fuck around with this stuff. So it's quite interesting that Rodney is the one, who is more impressionable.
I think Del does believe more than he lets on. He just kind of brushes it off to make it seem like he doesn't care. But we'll get to this after the seance. But but we don't know if Rodney actually knows if that Joan story was a lie or not. We have to assume not, because of the way he acts during the seance. He actually thinks that he did receive a message from his mum.
Yeah, that's true. I just thought that was a bit of a deviation from what I would expect from Rodney's character, because he seems to be very logical. He'd call bullshit on stuff like this. He doesn't seem to have any spirituality ever mentioned. So I just think this is quite interesting that Rodney believes this and Del is shown sort of not to. As you say, it's quite possible that Del does believe it. Obviously, he does in the seance. So the Elsie Partridge is a medium joke, is another David Jason almost laughs. If you look at his face when he says that, he really has to hold it together. And I also said, just my final note for this scene, Del is exactly the sort of person who would be great at being like a fortune teller, spiritualist, like these people that, go on TV and go, I'm getting an M, I'm getting an A. Is it an Arthur? No, I'm getting a P. It's a Penelope. Like these people like just bullshitting, because Del does this in the market. It's the patter. And again, it's that sort of being able to convince people like that you are believable, that you're credible, just from what you say. I think people that do this, I mean, I've got to give them credit for the audacity of it all. But and obviously some people make a lot of money doing this stuff. But it's obviously a very interesting career path, I'll just say. Of course, in this episode, Elsie Partridge is portrayed as being a genuine medium, which I don't think there ever has been confirmed. Obviously, there's never has been confirmed. But what do you think about that, dude?
Well, you said something very similar when we recorded Miracle of Peckham, especially at the end bit where he's talking to the press, that Del has a knack for this kind of career where he is brash, front man, speaking, getting people to listen to his words and believe. And I personally see this whole career as something that is, unfortunately preying on vulnerability, because
I agree.
I know, I haven't been through what a lot of people have been through in terms of loss. If I were to lose someone very close to me, and somebody came along and said that they'd received a message, I think I would maybe convince myself. It's the same. I mean, I feel the same way about religion, to be honest. I'm not religious. I'm not even really that spiritual, and I still feel emotional when I think of the idea of somebody communicating from another realm. So it's I think it comes into what you want to believe if it gives you comfort, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think. I do think there's something wrong with taking money from people for that, but then financial situations cause people a lot of stress as well, and it's if someone's willing to pay you, would you walk away from it?
I have got to say, one of my sort of guilty pleasures that I love to do is watch the spiritual fortune teller fails compilations on YouTube.
Oh no.
That's so funny.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how I feel. I mean, I feel like it's manipulative, and especially in this country.
I agree. Well, I would like to say now, dude, if you ever see me starting to be like, I think I'm going to give my money to a fortune teller or a preacher, stop me. And that means even if you're dead, stop me somehow.
But I just forgot though, and remembered this. Don't you love like tarot cards and tarot readings?
Oh, I love it for the fun, for the spectacle of it, for the drama of it. Yeah, I like to read people's tarot cards and be like, ooh. But I completely understand that it is all fake, and I love the fact that it's fake because it makes it fun. Because tarot cards, the way that they're written, the meanings, you can interpret anything that they say and put it into your own life in your own context.
Right.
That's the way fortune telling works, and that's why it can be so like, ooh, so spooky, it's so accurate. It's like, no, if I'd read this to anybody, they could have taken it and put it to their own life and been like, that's so accurate about this thing in my life. That's how it works.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very interesting to me, these traditions, all the same.
So the next scene is in the Nag's Head, and the first thing that we see is Boycie and Trigger at the bar. But Boycie gets called aside by Jevon and Mickey sitting at the table by the window, our favourite new table. It's funny that they have this little exchange in here because then Jevon and Mickey are not in the rest of the episode. But
yeah, that's what I said about putting like everyone in the episode just to be like, well, except Denzel. But yeah, nice just to have. I think they're in it because they want to establish that Mickey's doing the job that he was going to do with Rodney. With Jevon.
But now he's with Jevon. Yeah, and this must have been like literally the week before he had his big accident where he fell through the glass and got really injured, because the next time that they recorded with him, he was in the sling, which we'll talk about more in Little Problems. But this must have been so close to that date that he had that accident. So this little exchange here sets us up nicely for the next episode, like you just said, when Jevon and Mickey's business dealings land them in some hot water with the Driscoll brothers. So Boycie says,
So, you and Jevon partners now or something, are you?
Yeah, we're doing a bit of trading.
We specialise in anything.
So Boycie offers them the opportunity to pop down the showroom and have a go with some of the old bangers he's got in there. Reminded me a bit of He Ain't Heavy, He's My Uncle there a little bit. So yeah, in the background we hear that Mike has escorted Elsie Partridge to the room upstairs, and we hear that he has allowed Del to use the room for the seance. So we see things have progressed quite fast from the last scene. Come along nicely with Del's latest scheme. There's a nice discussion now at the bar between Mike, Boycie, Trigger and Neris, mostly discussing whether or not they believe in the supernatural. Everyone seems to, except for Boycie, and we get a really hilarious story here from Trigger, which goes back to the Alice, who and his gran, like with Arthur, which is kind of nice, from ashes to ashes.
Yes.
He says,
my old gran was a bit of a medium. A few years after my grandfather died, she made contact with him.
Oh, yeah? What did he say?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, he was dead, weren't he?
Yeah, but she just made contact across the veil.
Yeah, but for the last 15 years of his life, they didn't talk to each other.
Because she had the affair with Grandad.
so funny that they didn't talk after she made comment.
Yeah.
This is such a great Trigger style story to slip in there, which is really funny. But I really love the banter just between these side characters here. So much fun. But then Del, Rodney and Albert arrive.
Hold up, here come the Ghostbusters.
You were going to say Coachbusters.
I was going to say Coachbusters.
I literally wrote that joke in the Jolly Boys outing as a continuation from Ghostbusters to Coachbusters.
It is very funny. And John Challis was born to do these like big epic lines. He's just so good at them. Yeah. So Del gets pulled aside here to talk about the financial issues, which we mentioned in the last scene, and we learn a fair bit about exactly how much his free food and drink from Mike has been adding up, and Mike's been giving...
Oh my God, it's so much.
He even gave Elsie food, so... You can see here that Del is trying to keep up his image, but Mike is not very sympathetic. But Del does manage...
After this much, I wouldn't be either, though, to be fair. It's an awful lot he's had off him.
But Del's so good at this, and he even gets Mike sort of excited about the seance. And after a couple of minutes, Mike's sitting there with a big smile on his face, excited about how much money he's going to make, which is quite fun.
I wrote that too.
Yeah, but I do really love the line.
I've been sailing the good ship Trotter through a little patch of fiscal turbulence, right? As soon as I get old Elsie Partridge firing on all 4 cylinders, I'll be laughing.
So, yeah, it works, and we're pretty pleased to see how well Del is still able to flip everything
manipulate
around,
Mike.
Yeah. But Yeah, just like in Chain Gang, we get everybody round that table in the corner, which, you know, is a great table for these shots. Everyone joins them, and I don't know, there's a brief discussion about who believes and who doesn't in the supernatural. And again, everyone except Boise, and now Del is on the bandwagon, which I know is probably a deliberate setup for the next scene, because the two spirits are for them to.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is another example of the similarities between Del and Boise's characters. Like, those two are having a laugh. They're like the naughty kids in the class, and everyone else is like, take it seriously, the teacher's talking, and they're like, So I think, again, I as I mentioned before, I think that their characters are very similar on a lot of levels, and scenes like this kind of reiterate that a little bit.
Yeah, and they do validate each other's beliefs, and they're a little bit more like the serious businessman type out of the group, but...
Yes.
But perhaps here there's a joke that might need explaining, because Boise says, Neris says,
It'll be covered in boils and scabs and things.
Be like a singing detective look-alike contest, wouldn't it?
Did you get that joke?
No.
I mean, I don't even know why I need to ask. I'm pretty sure I knew you wouldn't get it. So I didn't know either, and I think this is pretty niche. So The Singing Detective was a 6-part BBC serial drama that aired in 1986. Seems fairly niche reference, as it's very highly, but it is very highly regarded, this series. The main character suffered from psoriatic arthropathy, a chronic skin and joint disease, and acute stage, forming lesions and sores all over his entire body and partially crippling his hands and feet. So this is what Boise is referring to. A lot of people laugh at it. Honestly, I'm surprised so many people got it, but they did. So.
Well, it was only, 3 years ago at the time that this aired?
At the time, it was very recent. It's true. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, talk about a niche reference. Anyway, the scene ends with a loud thump from upstairs.
Sounds like her sign to get started.
Well, it might not mean that.
Well, either that, she's got cramp in her wooden leg.
And that is the end of the scene. What notes do you have on this, dude?
So I had a question for you, because I'm not sure if I'm right about this, because, you know, I always like to mention, is this the first time we... Boise and Mickey have not spoken much in the series yet. And there's only one other example I could think of when Boise speaks directly to Mickey, but maybe you've got another one. I was thinking of the part where he calls him a cretinous little hook when he throws the dart near him when he's gambling.
Yes.
Are there any other points when Boise and Mickey talk to each other before this? I know they're all in the bar in Video Nasty.
Yeah, and they do communicate in that episode a little bit, because Boise tells Mickey to hurry up, right, with the camera or whatever, but I don't think that they talk in a direct one-to-one conversation or 1-to-2 conversation.
No.
Again, since Wanted. And I do remember saying in Wanted that, you know, Boise and Mickey know each other, because, like, you know, we didn't know that up until that point. We could have thought Mickey was just one of Rodney's annoying little friends.
Did you think that was Wanted as well, that scene with the cretinous little lurks?
Oh, it's watching the girls go by.
I thought it was Wanted as well. I thought it was. It's not. It's watching the girls go by.
Ah, right, when he's with all of his friends. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I thought it was Wanted too. That's so interesting. I thought it was Wanted when I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's not Wanted. That's Rodney and Mickey speaking in the bar at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's so weird that we both thought it was that episode.
Well, they both have that vibe. Yeah. It's like in the early days of Only Fools and Horses, a lot of the characters were very separate. And you didn't know, because you haven't got the show history, that they all know each other. Whereas later, they pretty much just have everyone know everyone. You walk in the pub, you know the name of the barman, you know the people at the table next to you. In the early days, we didn't really know the history and who knew who. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I already mentioned this, but saying that Mickey and Jevon going into the business that Mickey started with Rodney, you'd think that he would be a bit mad about that or something, Rodney. He's like, oh, now you want to do it, and you didn't want to do it properly when you were with me. You just ran off to Benidorm. And Trigger actually believes in this stuff, which again I think is interesting, and that makes sense for Trigger's character, in my opinion. Out of all the characters that are superstitious and believe in it, Trigger, it makes the most sense to me, because he's sort of looking at the world through child's eyes almost, Trigger, at this point. I said Neris looks so different here.
I mean,
unrecognizable than how she looked in Dates. I think it's her voice literally is the only thing that gives her away.
I guess I didn't click that it's the same person when I was younger, but all they've really done is change her clothes.
Yes, but she doesn't look the same, like, at all. Like, it's almost affects her entire, like, personality.
I know, but that's the only difference. She has the same hair and everything else. They just changed her into that Nag's Head themed jumper, which I noticed that Mike is wearing too. They're both wearing the Nag's Head merch.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that Mike even allowed Del to have a slate in the first place. Like, how did this get started? Because Mike doesn't seem like the sort of person who'd be like, you can have all this for free. He might give it as a, like, you know, a discount. Here's one for free. But I think that...
But it's not for free. It's to be paid for free, for nothing. It's not for free. It's for later to pay. It's not for free.
Yes, I know. But the fact is that Del wouldn't have paid that one. And then he gave him more stuff to pay later. Again, this doesn't match with me the way that Mike is when Del's like trying to sell him stuff. I just find it hard to believe that it got to this point when Mike was listing all the shit that Del hasn't paid for, that he would let him get away with that. But unless, of course, we do see what Del does after he's accused, where he turns Mike back to his side very easily.
That's the thing.
So maybe he did that every other time Mike mentioned it.
He always does manage to talk Mike round. I mean, he talks him into buying a hairdryer in Modern Man. This is an ongoing theme with them.
Electric paint stripper.
Look at my hair. He doesn't have like any need to buy any of the things that he ever buys off Del, and it continues all the way through the end of the series.
Well, except maybe the tomatoes, they might have been useful.
But he doesn't protest at those, does he?
No.
No.
Very true. And I also said, this is my final note, Del is not wrong that there is a lot of money to be made from this sort of stuff. People pay the earth if they think they're actually speaking to professional medium, fortune teller, whatever you want to call them. People actually believe they can contact their dead relatives. People pay the earth for the shit. So Del is onto something there from Del's point of view.
That's definitely true. And I didn't point out his little price list, but he's pretty got that in the right order, because pets are almost the most expensive. That's what I would try to contact as my pets.
Yeah.
And then Elvis Presley being the most expensive.
Well, this is the other thing as well. Like, obviously, Del doesn't understand this. This is like, but Elsie would probably say, you can't pick who comes and talks to you. Like, you can't be like, I'm going to contact Elvis Presley. You just have to kind of open the gates, and then whoever wants to step through and talk to you talks to you, you know, in that setting. So you can't say like someone specific can be contacted, right? Based on what Elsie does in the seance scene anyway.
No, and also, a lot of people would say that. But when money's involved, you can do anything you want. And most people are not, not got principles. And nor does Elsie, because she totally abandons all of her principles.
Yeah, I had to know about the next scene, that she loses her principles very quickly in multiple times in that scene. But yes, I agree with you. I think that it's something that you can absolutely lie about, and obviously, my opinion, what all people who do this job do lie about.
Yeah.
So it's And I just thought that was very astute, though, Del to notice what a great money making opportunity that is.
It is, yeah, it's very astute, very Del.
So yeah, that's all I had for that scene.
Okay, so we're at the seance, and to start off here, I think it's so fun that all of Del's friends agreed to do this dummy run seance with Del. It's a really great scene, very memorable.
Yes.
So the scene begins with Del dimming the lights, and he returns to the table to remind Elsie that this is just a dummy run. So we see everybody's gathered around the table here in the Nag's Head spare room, and this is the set that was created for these last 2 episodes, as we mentioned in the trivia, and it is where the wedding is held in the next episode. And another sneaky note that I can slip in here, that it says in the script that the scene begins with Elsie going into her trance. So this little intro part here must have been added in to sort of help maybe set the context for it being a dummy run, and maybe show a little bit more about Elsie and Del's perceptions about what they're about to do. And it helps us understand that Elsie, doesn't want to get paid or whatever, but Del's managed to convince her, because if we didn't have that bit of dialogue, we might not understand why she went back on something that apparently Albert says her whole life she never took a penny of the money.
Yeah, I wrote that too. I said Elsie soon gave up on her principles of not taking money. And again at the end of the scene when she lies to Del about the fact that she's not really spoken to his mom and just did it for Albert.
But she does reiterate what Albert had said in the previous scene, and then saying that, he said she gave it all to the Battersea Dogs Home. She seems to be very easily convinced here. She just gives it up. But I don't understand why she can't take the money from this and then donate it to the Battersea Dogs Home anyway. She could still do that.
Yeah,
she doesn't
exactly.
have to put the money in her pinny. Which is funny, because that's exactly what Del says to Auntie Rosa. I just thought of that.
Yeah, he obviously thinks all women of her age wear pinnies.
Yeah, and they just carry their money around in it. But yeah, anyway, from the very beginning here, we see that Del's attitude towards the seance is very light-hearted, and this does not sit too well with Elsie.
You show some respect.
All right, Rodney, it's only a bit of a laugh, isn't it?
No, Derek, it is not a bit of a laugh. It's a very serious matter.
So this again goes a little bit back to what we were saying about how Del respects older women and why they couldn't bring in an old aunt instead of an old uncle when they replaced Granddad.
Yes, definitely.
Because you can see just the way that Del respects Elsie, sort of snapping at him here and telling him to respect the situation. If Albert had said that, Del would have just been like, shut up, you'll git. But they couldn't have like a female presence in the flat that Del would have to be so respectful of, like an elderly aunt.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not super respectful about like Raquel and stuff in the future, but it's different when it's your partner.
But he's also not as horrible to her as he would be to, the boys.
No, he is not. No, it's very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the joking around does continue a little bit until Boise sort of tells Del to calm down, and I think it's nice contrast for how quickly Del slips into believing it's all true when Joan comes along. But
yeah.
So there are a couple of pre-seance questions, and I have to highlight this wonderful comeback from Trigger when Mike asks,
They don't actually appear in the room, do they? The spirits.
Oh, don't worry, Mike. Just do what you normally do. Water them down.
I gotta say, when I was a kid, I did not understand that joke at all. I didn't know what watering down spirits meant.
It's good that you didn't know that, I think. But...
No, true.
So we get this wonderful shot from above here, which starts when Elsie says,
Now those spirits who wish to communicate will congregate behind you.
So they all look up and kind of behind them, and we see the round table shot from above, which I think is a very well remembered moment from the scene, especially well highlighted when they all put their white hands onto the table as the seance begins.
Yeah, I agree. I think those shots from above are amazing. I don't think we've seen any sort of camera angles like that before. So I think it's very cool, to see.
Yeah, so now Elsie goes into her trance.
Concentrate.
What's she doing?
She's going.
I can see that. Why is she doing it?
She's got into a trance.
Thank God for that. She had one of my pies earlier.
So the spirits are with us. And the first spirit to step forward is a tall, elderly man, and the group works together to try to figure out who it could be. But Elsie says he wishes to speak to someone named Aubrey.
I am here.
So now we find out that Boise's middle name is Aubrey.
Can I just say, I love the way that shot is set up. I think the timing is perfect because it goes around to everyone's facial expressions, sort of confused about Aubrey, and then it ends on Boise. I just think, the comedic timing of the way that is shot is perfect.
Yeah, and so it says online that Boise's full name is Herman or Terence Aubrey Boyce. I don't know. That must be from Green Grass because it's not mentioned in Only Fools and Horses, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, Herman kind of suits him, I guess. Herman Aubrey Boyce. Not a great name.
But yeah, I think there are some bits of trivia and stuff that comes from Green Grass because I don't know. I know it's not mentioned in the main episodes of Only Fools and Horses. Anything that's mentioned in the last 3, I would not remember.
No.
So here we have a very significant revelation from Elsie. She says that she receives a message from Boise's dad telling him to look after his child. And there are a couple of really good lines here. I love it when Elsie says,
There's an odd-looking boy standing beside him, 5 or 6 years old. Evil face.
And Del immediately knows that means it's Boise. And I also I love the bit where she says,
Oh, yes, of course, your mother. She isn't with you.
No.
Had she passed over to the other side?
No, she was taking a photo.
That reminds me of those compilations I mentioned earlier when they get it wrong, the mediums. I always love that. It's they're supposed to be all knowing, all seeing, and it's she passed over to the other side, she sensed it, and then it's no, she was taking the photo.
So another hilarious moment is when the camera goes around the entire circle and everybody comments on Boise's fertility issues before he even gets a chance to.
Elsie, Boise and his wife Marlene can't have kids.
Oh, they've been trying for years, but nitto.
Yeah, they've had tests, things frozen, everything.
The hospital have just about given up with him.
He's low on something.
I love that they ended with trigger. They had to end with trigger.
This ends Boise's involvement in the seance, and he storms out angrily, leaving the remaining members to close the circle. And then I think we're led to believe at the end of this seance that Elsie made everything up. But here we have to question, she can't have made this up, can she? How would she have known Boise's name was Aubrey and that Marlene was pregnant?
Yeah, can I just say what I wrote down here? So I said, I have a question. Boise's reading was real, but then Elsie faked Del's mom. So first of all, why wouldn't Del's mom come forward if it was real? Like, she'd have every reason to, right? To be one of the people waiting to speak to Del. And if it's not Del's mom, was Elsie ignoring another spirit to fake Joan? Because, like, the idea is that the spirit stepped forward and you address that one. So if it was real, as we assume it is because of Boise's situation, then she was ignoring another spirit that stepped forward and pretending that it was Joan, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know for sure that how it works. Like, is it quite possible that you have just like downtime during a seance and no one comes forward?
I don't know. I mean, she said like, someone has stepped forward, and then she's like, is anybody there? So I assume that, if it were real, that the spirits are stepping forward in order to make themselves known to her, so they want to speak to someone. So presumably, unless there weren't any more spirits after Boise's dad, presumably she ignored a spirit that stepped forward to pretend Joan was there.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be overthinking it a little bit. I don't know what.
Probably.
Why would you overthink it?
Because I do that. That's my job on the podcast, to overthink and nitpick.
So let's say that you haven't ever seen this episode. You would think that the next spirit is Joan. And so at first we don't know. She just gets described by Elsie before the name gets announced, or Del says that's our mother.
It's a woman. Tall, slender, long blonde hair. Fingers covered in rings of ruby and gold. Bracelets adorn the wrists.
You know who that is, don't you?
Sounds like Jimmy Savile.
So I've read a few people say that this little line was cut out of some broadcasts. I've never seen a broadcast where it's cut out, but I'm guessing that some broadcasts would cut this out.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like the reason things like this are cut is because obviously what we know now, it's kind of done out of respect to the victims. But just to say that she looks like Jimmy Savile, or this sounds like he's describing Jimmy Savile, I don't know how offensive that would be considered, but yeah, I mean,
I think it's one of
those things.
It's just a mention of his name because the BBC loved Jimmy Savile so much they were probably a bit embarrassed when they had to kind of.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, but
yeah, he was like they were like his biggest enablers. So yeah.
Yeah, but like I think I pointed out before, it's now mostly broadcast on ITVX, so they probably keep it in just to make fun of the BBC. But who knows?
Yeah.
So I think so here we have Elsie apparently reeling off all of this nice caring stuff towards Del and Rodney, and it's really lovely to see Del listening so intently to his mother's words, even though he said he didn't believe it, but he looks like he does.
Yeah, I love it when Rodney interrupts and he's like,
don't interrupt, Rodney.
Yeah, all of this really nice stuff, yeah, basically. And Rodney interrupts to ask if Joan is watching over them while he's getting his end away. That's what I wrote. But Del looks so happy listening to his mom, And
yeah, he does.
I know we both love the quote.
She says you have both worked hard to succeed, but never mind.
That's what we say about this podcast.
Yeah. But now Elsie brings up the illness, and we get to hear how Del may have spoken to his mom. He kind of goes a little bit childish a little bit here.
He's like a little boy.
Yeah. She's concerned for his health, and he gets whiny and upset, and we get the impression that this causes the spirits to fade away because of how he gets.
She insists.
No, I don't want to go and see a doctor. I don't like doctors.
Oh, they're becoming distant. They're drifting away.
Can't you get them back, Else?
Is there anybody there? If there's anybody there, talk to us. Say something.
Lager's off.
So So Neris bursts in at the end and ends the seance. I just always imagine all the spirits just going like into the sky.
Yeah. I mean, Neris was a bit stupid here. Like, she knew they were having a seance and she decided to abruptly open the door like that. Surely she knew that was going to scare the shit out of everybody.
It's true, yeah, she did know because she was talking about it down in the bar, so, but...
Yeah.
Oh, well. So there's a bit of a kerfuffle here and Mike kind of ushers Neris out and leaves quickly. We cut back to Del, Rodney and Trigger right after the big jump, and Rodney and Trigger inquire as to what Del is planning to do following this message from his mom. And he tries to brush it off and say that his reaction was all for Elsie's benefit. Even Trigger chimes in here. Contrary to his earlier comments, he agrees that it can't be real based on the message Boise received. Although Rodney is still sort of lecturing Del as they leave the room, and then we, the audience, get to see the intimate conversation between Albert and Elsie, which is very sweet, but it does reveal what we suspected.
Thanks for doing that, Else.
That's the first time I've ever lied to anyone at a sitting. And I only gave Derek that message because you asked me to.
I'm grateful. He wouldn't take any notice of me and Rodney. The only one he'd ever listened to was his mum.
Oh. So now we, the audience, know that Elsie did not receive a divine message from Joan, even though it was very believable. Elsie did put on a pretty good show. It's a shame that we see that Elsie has abandoned her principles again. And I wrote here, do we think Rodney was in on this? I don't think so. I don't think he knew about this. This is an Albert plan.
No, I don't think he knew either, because I think Rodney looks just as sort of interested in what Joan has to say as Del does.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, he wouldn't have interrupted the flow to sort of embarrass himself and be like, she don't mean all the time, does she?
No, I agree. Yeah. I actually love how respectful Rodney is when he talks to Elsie as well. He's like, Mrs. Partridge.
Yeah, they're all very respectful of women. It's nice. I mean, older women.
I mean, I just like Rodney is like always like a little boy talking to an older lady. It's just, yeah, it's nice, respectful. Like Mr. Cooper.
Yeah. So yeah, that was all I had for that scene. Do you have any more notes, or did you mostly get them in during the seance?
I think just a couple of things. I said I'm surprised that Rodney isn't more suspicious of Elsie, like not being legit. I'm surprised he's not more skeptical, because that would be in keeping with his character. And he just seems to kind of, for me, he believes all this stuff a bit too easily. Like Rodney's exactly the sort of character that I would imagine would question all this and be like, oh, really? This is real, is it? Yeah, okay, sure. You know, I just don't think that suits Rodney's character to be so believing of this stuff, but that's just my opinion. And I just want to say the actress who plays Elsie is amazing. She's so funny, the way she takes it so seriously and yet is so over the top. I think it's brilliant. And this is the first of 2 middle name jokes that we get in Series 6. Can you tell me what the other one is, dude?
Yeah, for Rodney's wedding, Rodney Charlton Trotter.
Yes, Rodney Charlton Trotter.
It's funny that Boise laughs at Rodney's middle name. His is worse.
I know. It's not as bad as Albury. I love how immediately Del seems to believe everything just because he thinks it's his mom. Like you said, he sort of brushes it off afterwards and says he was just playing along. But yeah, it does seem in that moment that he does believe it. But I actually am quite surprised that Del wouldn't believe in it, because he's God-fearing, right? Like, Del seems to believe in the miracle of Peckham in Miami Twice, that, like, he will be punished if he does something that God doesn't like. So I find it quite hard to believe that he wouldn't believe in this stuff. Again, it's like the opposite. I feel like Rodney would be the skeptic and Del would be the one believing. So it's kind of reversed. It's interesting.
Well, I think that Del does believe it. I just think he just hides it pretty well and goofs around a lot to hide maybe his fear again, like he does with his illness. But
yeah, maybe. Oh, on that note, I also said it's interesting that Boise's the one who tells Del to take it seriously, and he finally listens, because it's like those two are like the class clowns, like egging each other on. And as soon as Boise's like, come on, Derek, let's take it seriously, he stops messing around. So I think that's, again, that power dynamic in their friendship is quite interesting, how similar they are. And yeah, I just said really nice moment at the end between Elsie and Albert. And it's a shame that, you know, Elsie isn't in it more. I'd like to have seen Elsie again. And, you know, Albert's going after Marlene's mum. I don't mind, Albert, in Series 7 in Heavy is my uncle. So yeah, I just would have liked to have seen more from Elsie and Albert, because I think they're very cute together.
I'm guessing that the main reason that Elsie fades away is because the actress was so busy. I mean, if you look at her IMDb, she's so busy.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, they could have had them fighting over Elsie, and he ain't heavy as my uncle.
That's true. But Elsie would have already been with Albert. Like, she'd have picked Albert over Knock Knock already, so there wouldn't have been a fight, I suppose. That's why they had to have it like that. But yeah, I think it's a I think it's just nice, to see Albert have a love interest, because I feel like in series 6, it's like they have to put Rodney in a relationship. Obviously, they have Del with Raquel at the beginning of the series, and then later on with her again in the Jolly Boys outing. So it's interesting that John Sullivan even sort of wanted Albert to have a relationship, because I feel like at Albert's age, it's a lot less likely that, someone of Albert's age would have found love. And I mean, Grandad never did, so I think it's quite interesting that they had Albert sort of be able to have a relationship, because I guess in this day and age it would be very easy. There's probably like dating apps for older people and stuff, but yeah, in that sort of time period in the late 80s, I did have imagined it would have been quite hard for someone of Albert's age to find love again.
Maybe some women went down the Legion or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, also Cassandra does say in one of the final 3 episodes, I can't remember, in the 2000s episodes, that they had this like love story from before Elsie and Albert, although I feel like that was created for those episodes. I don't think that was taken into consideration here.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, obviously in The Unlucky Winners, her name just magically comes out of nowhere as a date for Albert, and I'm sure that they just had it for these 3 last episodes of series 6. They maybe didn't even think about bringing the name back. And he probably just considered it for those last 3 because Buster Merrifield had already died. So it's like, well, we may as well just paint this sort of backstory about where he ended up going. But
yeah, true. But yeah, that's all I had for that scene.
Okay, so we move back down into the Nag's Head, and this is a very quick but important scene. It opens on a shot of Mike mounting the poster on the wall, and Del and Rodney re-enter the bar with a pile of posters for the seance. And they are greeted immediately by Marlene, who is now over by the window with Boycie. Marlene says,
well, Boycie's just told me what that Elsie Partridge said.
Oh, now don't you start. I've been having enough trouble with Rodney and Albert. There's nothing the matter with me.
I'm not talking about your illness. I mean what she said to Boyce.
Oh, listen, darling. You don't want to take any notice of what Elsie Partridge says because it's all a con, you see.
No, you don't understand. I'm having a baby.
So Del gets another one of his very strong stomach pains, and Marlene asks,
what was up with him then?
Sympathy pains. A lot of men go through phantom pregnancies.
I thought that only happened to the father.
This is the beginning of a running joke about Boycie maybe not being the father of future baby Tyler, or maybe that Marlene is or has been unfaithful to Boycie. I remember there's a scene where they all wave bye-bye to him later, and this says, say bye-bye to your daddy, and they all wave. And also Del pointing out all the features of Tyler that match, like, the other guys. So it's just a running joke, and it begins very early on. But it says in the script that Trigger laughs and winks at Boycie, and Boycie reacts. That's all it says. But you see that Del and Rodney, Del actually...
Yeah, they all react, don't
Del
they?
kind of cringes, and then Marlene's just looking happily.
He looks guilty, like he is the father.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, but I mean, we don't think that they actually are having an affair, so yeah.
Well, they kind of, I mean, John Sullivan kind of hints all the way through the entirety, ever since Marlene's introduced, that Del and her could be having an affair. Like, they've got like their contacts and stuff, and they're just messing around.
I mean,
but also it's kind of, a bit weird when they sort of bring up that Del did actually date Marlene and he forgot. So.
Well, Boycie would absolutely deserve Marlene to cheat on him. I mean, there's several references to Boycie having affairs, so why wouldn't Marlene just cheat?
Use that phone. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, anything else for that scene?
Just a couple of things. I just put, to be fair, the posters do look more like a band than old lady meeting spirits. But I mean, I suppose they couldn't just put like a picture of Elsie Partridge in her hat on the posters. So
no.
There was a potential continuity thing I just wanted to bring up here. Marlene says, I'm not talking about your illness. I was talking about what happened to Boyce, but how did Marlene know that Del had the illness mentioned, like, to him? Because they all came down like straight away, and then she spoke to him and said, oh, not about your illness. So who told Marlene? Because Boycie wasn't in the seance at that time, and it happened very quickly.
Loads of people point this out in IMDb goofs or continuity errors, but I've never thought this because, first of all, she doesn't say that she knows what happened at the seance. She only implies that she knows about his illness. She says, I'm not talking about your illness. She doesn't say, I'm not talking about what Elsie said about your illness. She's just saying, like, I'm not talking about your illness. I'm talking about what Elsie said to Boyce. So it does kind of imply that maybe she just already knew he was ill. But there is also the chance that Mike mentioned it because he was already down in the bar for like a good 5 minutes before they came down, and maybe he saw Marlene and just said something like, oh, Del's mom stepped forward and told Del to go to the doctor. It's possible, but
Yeah, that's true. I suppose Mike could have been the one who said something. Or Neris, actually, I suppose, as well.
Neris wasn't in the seance, was she? But
no, but I mean, Mike could have said something to Neris, and then Neris said something. Yeah, you're right. It was like a couple of minutes Mike left. But although Mike should have been serving customers.
Yeah.
Because there were so many waiting, according to Neris.
Well, they were waiting for the lager. They're not necessarily Mike.
No, that's true. But yeah, and then I said I love that they imply that Del's the father because it's believable, but I just mentioned that as well. So yeah, that's all I had for that scene.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to move on to the doctor's office. So it shows that Del did make a decision after this revelation that he would go to the doctor. And this is a great scene, which I remember almost word for word from my childhood. So Del has been convinced, although he does arrive at the doctor's surgery unaware that he's not seeing Dr. Meadows. And it kind of seems like he doesn't have an appointment or anything. He's just sort of walked in and been surprised to see Dr. Shahid.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Dr. Meadows isn't a GP, right? If he's working at the hospital.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that he's moved to the hospital, does he, until he arrives?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so what, he just turned up to where he thought Dr. Meadows was and his name wasn't...
But that does kind of fit
right.
because Del... It's like when Del goes to the dentist in Fatal Extraction and he hasn't been since the Queen's Jubilee. This is like Del doesn't go often enough to know, so it's quite plausible that he just walked into the surgery and was like, "Where's Dr. Meadows?"
True.
But yeah, upon arrival, he is surprised to meet Dr. Shahid and find out that she's a woman.
That's a woman.
Dr. Shahid was played by actress Josephine Welcome, who has, as recently as 2025, appeared in Coronation Street as Aunt Rainey, but she played Dr. Patel in Coronation Street all the way back in 2004 and beyond.
Yeah, I remember her from the Coronation Street episodes because I was like, oh, she's always a doctor.
Yeah, actually, a lot of her credits, she's got tons of credits on IMDb, and a lot of them are doctors. Yeah, she's very good at playing doctors.
She's a very good doctor, to be fair.
2 doctors. So she's been in lots of other stuff as well that we've mentioned on this podcast, such as Doctor Who, Tenko, and she played a big role in the show called Goldie's Oldies in 2021. So here is a quote from the lovely Jubbly book by Jim Sullivan and Mike Jones. I had worked with Tony Dow before, and he got in touch about the part, saying he saw this doctor as being dressed in a traditional sari but having a posh English accent. John Sullivan's dialogue is perfectly written, so it was a pure joy to act it out with David Jason. And on the subject of recording in front of the live studio audience, Josephine said, there is a great atmosphere of excitement and anticipation. I think we've heard that before. Watching studio audiences watch with such a well-loved series as Only Fools and Horses, it's like being on stage, and in theatre things can go wrong, sometimes hilariously, but with a studio audience... can enjoy that sort of thing, and unlike in theatre, you can just do it again if it goes wrong.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, theatre is like it's the end of the world if something goes wrong on the stage in theatre. Well, if you don't cover it up well anyway. So yeah,
but I think studio audiences probably really do love mistakes. Although I think on this very time thing that they had going on, they probably were the crew were probably pretty stressed out every time.
I was going to say the audience would have loved the mistakes, but yeah, you're right. The crew and the cast probably not so much.
Yeah, and we know that Del and Rodney, Nick Lyndhurst and David Jason were very stressed and tired recording this because they were like literally staying up all night to do the scripts and the rehearsals and stuff. So
yeah.
But anyway, back to the scene. So as Del comes in, you can see from his body language that he's very uncomfortable with the idea of seeing a female doctor as he is asked to sit down. And he's still in denial as he sits down, and he appears to have changed his mind about addressing the issue altogether when Dr. Shahid asks,
"What's the problem?"
For me? No, nothing at all.
You're not ill?
Nah, I never felt better in my life.
Mr. Trotter, I have a waiting room full of sick people. Now, what is it you want, a certificate?
No, I don't want a certificate. I mean, I'm self-unemployed. No, it's just... It's hardly worth bothering you about, really.
Why don't you let me be the judge of that? Now, what's the problem?
All right, well, I've been getting a bit of Cynthia.
Cynthia?
Pain.
Where do you get this pain?
Well, all over, really. I mean, this morning I got it in the lift as I was...
No. Where on your body?
Oh, right. Get it in the old New Delhi, don't
I? New Delhi?
Yeah, the belly. You're not from round these parts, are you?
So, 2 notes here. The script says self-employed, not self-unemployed. So I guess that's a nice little addition by David Jason there.
Oh, yeah.
Then we have to address the use of the language that Del uses here that Dr. Shahid doesn't understand. So did you know the origin of Cynthia for pain?
No.
Yeah, so this is a really old-fashioned one because I tried to look this up and it's not the rhyming slang strictly because Cynthia Cynthia Payne, apparently, according to cockneyrhymingslang.co.uk, is actually the rhyming slang for rain, not pain. So here it's just a case of them using the name Cynthia to mean pain. I actually found an essay on academia.edu written by somebody called Simon James, and it's called The Creative Language of John Sullivan in Only Fools and Horses.
Wow.
So I'll just read this quote because it can explain it better than I can. And it says, "The fact that she doesn't understand him and he concludes that she can't be local shows that his use of rhyming slang is a regional feature in East London." I think we know that. "The laughter after both Cynthia and Payne could be because some audience members understand his reference the first time and they laugh when he just says Cynthia, and you hear more people laugh when he says Payne because it's being explained to them when he says that. So further implying that the rhyming slang is geographical and will only be understood by a proportion of the population. The example shows two forms of Cockney rhyming slang can take, as New Delhi is rhyming slang for belly. It rhymes with something else and rhymes with belly. So that's like the traditional use. But Cynthia, on the other hand, requires the listener to complete the, the name Cynthia Payne. In this case, it's not the intended word rhyming with the omitted word. It's just a homophone. Yeah, so it's similar to the Ruby Murray thing. It's like it says here that Cynthia Payne is no longer around or topical. So like nowadays, nobody would really know who she was.
Yeah.
So, like, if somebody younger would not understand that Cynthia Payne was a person. And to be honest, when I was a kid, I thought he says Cynthia, as in, like...
Yeah, I thought so, like symphony. Cynthia.
Yeah, or like sympathy. Like, that's not... I never really thought he was saying Cynthia. I always thought he was saying Sim, like S-Y-M.
Yeah, I thought that too, yeah.
So... I guess Cynthia Payne was in the news a lot at this time for allegations of running brothels in London. So people knew who she was. And you can hear people do laugh when it's explained the pain part. So I think it's like one of those things that everybody in that generation is going to know. They'll be like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't know. But like, if you weren't around listening to the news, I mean, I would have been, 5 when this episode came out. So I don't think I was watching news stories about brothels. And by the time we were old enough to watch it, I don't think she would have been a name that many people would know. Let us know in the comments if you think differently.
Yeah.
After Del describes his pain to Dr. Shahid, he is told to strip to the waist and lie on the couch for an examination, and again, he's very reluctant. But he goes ahead and goes behind the curtains. Now, I think this bit is just very cleverly written because we can only hear Del talking from the curtains, and 99% of what he says is lies, but we're seeing Dr. Shahid's reaction, so... It's good that we can see it this way. It's quite funny. She's trying to establish a bit more about Del's lifestyle and habits, but she keeps getting a lot of jokes rather than cooperation. This is one of my favourites, and this one gets a little bit of applause, I think.
Do you have any trouble passing water?
I had a dizzy spell going over Tower Bridge once.
She does a great job of pausing to allow the audience applause kind of laughter to end here.
Yeah.
So Dr. Shahid ultimately does tell him to stop joking around. And we hear quite a lot of lies here about his lifestyle. I think this line from Dr. Shahid really highlights that if he'd been honest, he could have been in and out of that office without any trouble.
That's very good. Even in this day and age, you'd be surprised the number of people that still exist on fried foods and takeaways.
Ew, not me, Doc. I'm like a walking grow bag. When they bury me, there'll be rhubarb everywhere within 6 months.
So the scene pauses here for a moment when Dr. Shahid goes in to examine him and comes straight out again and says,
Mr. Trotter, when I said strip to the waist, I meant the top half.
So there's a little pause in the scene there, so I froze. Do you have any notes on that first part?
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say, in Del's defense, I also prefer seeing a doctor of the same sex as me. I guess some people just do, and I do as well. So, and Del, I guess, makes sense for his character that he'd want to see a male doctor rather than a female one.
Oh, yeah.
The entire exchange between Del and the doctor is great, you already said. But it's strange seeing Del so scared.
Yeah.
Especially later in the episode. Obviously, it gets more prominent later. But yeah, just seeing Del afraid of this and sort of lying about everything. It's, not a side of Del's character that we've seen very often. So again, I like seeing sides of the character that aren't shown often. And I also, I just think those 2 lines you mentioned, the Tower Bridge line, are great. And the top half part is so funny. I love her reaction when she comes back through the curtain with that sort of pissed off face before she explains to him. Like, it's just brilliant. So good. But yeah, that's all I had for that exchange.
Yeah. Okay, so we move to after the exam, kind of the same scene, but we see the exam has happened. Del is coming back out from behind the curtain, getting dressed, and Dr. Shahid is continuing to question him here about his lifestyle, and we hear that he's making up lies to explain some of his more concerning symptoms, such as saying that he jogged there, which would explain his high pulse rate.
Yeah, can I just say, he's wearing jeans and a shirt. Why would she believe that?
Yeah, I mean, it's true that when she says that and he says that, I think that's the first time that I would say she wouldn't believe that. I can understand.
Yeah, and where's his gym bag?
But also, you can just tell by looking at his physique that he is not in great shape. No offense to David Jason, but he's not like buff or anything, and he's got that a bit of a belly going on. He's not a walking. He's not a walking grow bag. Let's put it that way.
No.
But another thing, she doesn't take any like samples at this point of like his pee or anything. These are things that she does go just basically on verbal, and I think a lot of the time maybe that was the case in those days. It's like just to go back to what you just said, I think nowadays it's very common to be able to request like what sex your doctor is. I don't know if you could back then.
Maybe not. I mean, I don't know if people would still consider it sexist to do that. I don't really know.
It's completely allowed in this country. You can like request any type of doctor that you want, like age. I mean, I suppose I wouldn't
care as much if it was a male doctor, if it's like just sort of, going in for a consultation. But if it's like an examination, I think I'd prefer a female to do it. Yeah. Personally.
Yeah. Well, now there's more like, I guess, flexibility. I don't know in the NHS if there is, but in this country you're paying, so I suppose you get a little bit more.
Well, I was going to say, when you pay, I think you have more choices. But yeah, if you're just like going through the local system, I don't think you can choose these things. So yeah, that's the problem. But I just want to say, I don't know if you wrote a note about irritable bowel syndrome, but from my understanding, you can get irritable bowel syndrome from anything that you eat, even if it's healthy. If you have like a reaction to the food, I know you mentioned it's caused a lot of the time by stress as well, but if it's like just something that you eat that's causing you pain every time you eat it, like, isn't that also irritable bowel syndrome?
Well, so irritable bowel syndrome is not a condition that you catch. It's a syndrome, which means that it's like any other kind of syndrome in which that it can kind of come and go, and it's not necessarily triggered by eating. It could be triggered by not eating as easily as it could be by eating.
Yeah, so that would be something I'd go to right away if someone was having pain in the bowels.
Well, so yeah, like, so she doesn't, it seems at this point, we'll get to this in a second, that, her, what she thinks is her, we may as well just move on to it straight away. So I put here, it feels ominous at this point because we can feel Del's fear. It's like another character in the room at this point. So Dr. Shahid is about to say what she thinks is wrong with him, and she says that she's not sure, which is actually something that you don't get a lot of from doctors, because they usually do jump to something, most doctors, or at least they say all the things that they think it could be, which she kind of does. She says she suspects a grumbling appendix, but she has a hard time pinpointing his condition here, because he's saying that his lifestyle, he's implying that he has a very, calm lifestyle. I don't think we hear that, but he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he eats very healthily. She's not going to jump to that. But in my knowledge of IBS, it isn't really to do with the foods you eat. It's to do with stress. Like, it's almost 90% stress.
Right.
I don't know if they make a big enough deal of that, because later Dr. Meadows says the same thing. It's caused by your lifestyle. IBS is primarily caused by stress. Lifestyle doesn't help.
Right.
But it's my understanding that IBS is mostly caused by stress. But it's still actually a widely misunderstood condition, and say some people don't think it's real. So, because you can just put so many symptoms into the basket, you can be like diarrhea or constipation or stomach pain.
That's a little bit like endometriosis, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. It's just like that.
Because I have been diagnosed with an endometriosis, and it took me the longest time to get that diagnosis, because everyone just thought, it's regular period pain. I won't go on about this too much. I'm sure a lot of our male listeners don't want to listen to me talk about my period pains.
No,
but
I'm sure they
yeah, like there are some illnesses that have like very common symptoms, right? Like that are shared amongst millions of other illnesses. I mean, like migraines and things like that too. You have a migraine, it could be a million different things causing it. So yeah, it must be difficult to be a doctor.
I just think that if like let's say Del had been completely honest, it still wouldn't necessarily have immediately been, yes, okay, you've got IBS. Especially not in this day and age. But it doesn't matter, because, at this point, from the audience's point of view, I don't think it really jumps out to us that they're going to misdiagnose it based on his lies. I didn't think that, because I thought maybe he had, like something that could be easily diagnosed when I was a kid. I just thought that they just didn't get it till he went to the hospital. But I don't think if he'd come in and been honest that they would have immediately known. Let's just put it that way.
No, probably not. You're right. And obviously, we'll get to this later, but with more sort of prominent illnesses sort of going around at the time that were quite worrying, maybe they would want to rule that stuff out as well first.
But yeah, he wouldn't have ended up going to the hospital, very likely, because she probably would have suggested a few things for him to try, and it wouldn't have been as serious. But she thinks that it might be a grumbling appendix, so she tells him he has to go to the hospital right away, and that is a little bit ominous. Go now,
Yeah.
So she goes off to make a phone call because Del steals the phone and tries to immediately calls Rodney. So we can see.
I love the way that he does that.
Yeah.
I'll use the phone in the office.
Yeah.
In reception. I love it how nice she is to Del about the fact that he does that, and Del just sort of goes, yeah, okay.
Well, he's very, very nervous. I mean, again,
yes.
I don't want to say that she's a bad doctor, but she can't tell how nervous he is about this. That would indicate to me how stressed he is. But anyway, Del calls Rodney.
Hello, Rodders. It's me, Delboy. Yes, I'm here at the doctor's. Yes, listen, look, there's nothing to worry about, but I want you to come down here and give me a lift down to the hospital. Yeah, I've got to go there right away. Now, listen, I said there's nothing to worry about, so I don't want you driving here 100 miles an hour and having an accident, nothing like that. What? No, of course I can't get a cab. I don't care if Neighbours has just started. Look, I'm at the Quacks and I want you to take me to the hospital. I need you here, Rodney. I don't want to go on my own.
So this bit is quite hard to see. Yeah, Del looks so scared as this scene fades out. And
yeah, I just put, oh, poor vulnerable Del.
Yeah, there is even like a from an audience member when he says that.
Yeah, again, it's a side of him we never see.
Yeah, we never see this, and obviously we didn't see a younger Del left without a mother at a young age as well. Like he's not very good on his own, and he's immediately going to lean on Rodney for this one. So yeah, that's the end of the scene. Do you have any notes about the after the exam part of the scene?
Yeah, I just said that it's quite interesting that Rodney isn't immediately worried when he says he's got to go to the hospital, because again, you see sort of how reactionary Rodney is in the next scene when he's like, not the next scene, when he's in the hospital, he's like, don't you die, don't you bloody die. Like, I just thought that he would be like, oh shit, you gotta go to the hospital. Yeah, I'm coming, mate, I'm coming now. But he's like, Neighbours has just started.
Yeah.
Which takes me back, because we used to watch, obviously, Neighbours and Home and Away. Yeah, I just think, just lovely acting from David Jason. This whole sort of vulnerability, he does it so well, so convincingly, and you just feel so empathetic as an audience member watching him. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So then we move to the Nag's Head, and I put the Nag's Head aftermath scene. So this is just the scene where the order kind of reacting to Del being in hospital, basically. So the scene starts with Trigger and Rodney ordering from the bar, and we find out that Del is in hospital and it wasn't an appendix, so we know that already. Trig misunderstands keeping him in for observation.
Still, they're keeping him in, they're running tests, keeping him under observation.
Yeah, it must be horrible, that.
What?
Well, laying in bed all day with someone standing there looking at you.
No, Trig, they don't just keep... Yeah, it must be horrible.
A lot of Trigger's lines end like that, where they just agree with what Trigger thinks, so... Yeah, so here Rodney asks Mike to make Del a bacon sandwich and a bottle of Coke spiked with Bacardi so he can take it to Del in the hospital later. So we already see again that Del is not following any of the rules or advice of the health professionals. So this was that bit earlier where I told you that Mike just accepts whatever money Rodney has. It's quite funny. He just goes, that's all I got. And Rodney's like, that. So Mike's like, that'll do.
Oh, that'll do. Yeah.
So yeah, here, Rodney heads over to the table where Cassandra and Albert is sitting. And this is what I mentioned earlier. So if you're listening to the original broadcast, here you can hear the Simply Red song, It's Only Love, playing, I feel, fairly prominently in the background. So we're not going to be able to put many quotes, I don't think, in here, because if you do, they're going to get cut. So I'll mostly just explain what happens. So the basic overview of this conversation is that Albert and Rodney's overwhelming concern for not knowing what's wrong with Del. And there is a bond between them over this, especially sweet when Rodney actually apologizes to Albert for ridiculing his idea that he could have green parrot disease. So this is the first time Cassandra and Rodney are kind of in unison over Albert's war story. And they both say, "Oh God," when he starts talking about it. So that's another memorable little moment there.
Yes.
And it's nice to see Cassandra being a witness to Rodney's vulnerability, talking about Del's past and how, he's never gotten ill before, but he did get stabbed once by someone he was engaged to.
Yeah, I said I love the backstory about Del getting stabbed by one of his ex-fiancés. That's really quite an interesting sort of bit of backstory there that we'd like to know more about. It's like Del was nearly killed by one of his exes. That's crazy.
But yeah, we might have to address this in the next episode because you see David Jason has a scar and I can't remember. But yeah, that might be what they were like using as a joke. He has like a scar.
He does in the Little Problems when he's sitting on the bathtub, right?
Yeah, that might be like a reference to that in kind of a sort of secretive way, like a wink to the audience kind of thing.
Well, I also said, because Rodney says he didn't go to hospital. Didn't he go to hospital after Tommy McKay? I mean, he was beaten up pretty bad there. I know he went straight to the pub, but you'd think he would have gone to hospital.
I don't think he ever goes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can try putting this line in because it is sweet and it's a fun way to end the scene.
I prayed last night. Prayed Del wouldn't die.
Rodney, that's not going to happen.
No. As soon as I'd done it, I thought, well, it's stupid. Del ain't gonna die. He's not the type.
It's interesting. I actually think that Del isn't the type to die. He's right in a weird way. People like Del don't die. Yeah.
I mean, it is funny how that is the case, and some people just do die, which is very shocking. But Del doesn't seem the type. Yeah. So,
yes.
What other notes do you have on that little scene, dude?
I just said, I think by this point you're starting to see that Mike has quite a dark sense of humour, because I'm just thinking back to Danger UXD, he's laughing about the, the explosion in the flat, and then here he's like talking about his dead friend, and he's like, he died, did he? He's like, yeah. So I'm like, oh, Mike's quite dark.
He also takes it very seriously, though, after when he sees that he's upset Rodney. He's like, that's not going to happen to Del. No.
That's true, yeah. I'm just thinking initially, like when he's not checking himself, he's actually got quite a dark sense of humour, which I appreciate because I have a dark sense of humour. And then I also said, it's interesting, I feel like Rodney's letting himself be more himself in front of Cassandra by this point, like wearing the camouflage jacket.
Yeah.
I think he wore it in Unlucky Winner Is as well. But even so, it's like, the first few episodes of the series, he's always in a suit around Cassandra, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's nice that we sort of see Rodney being more casual and relaxed around Cassandra, which is nice to see. And I find it strange that Rodney would have taken the bacon sandwich and the Bacardi, because he would seem to be more cautious. Again, like you mentioned, Albert's fine with it. But yeah, Rodney doesn't seem like he would have been okay with that. Because even if Del wasn't fasting, it wouldn't have been a healthy thing to give him while he's in hospital. So I'm surprised that Rodney sort of plays into that.
Rodney at this point must not know, or maybe he never knows, how much Del lied about his lifestyle. And he also doesn't know what kind of tests Del's having, I guess. A lot of people bring food to people in hospital. I mean, it's a very common thing to do.
Yeah, but alcohol, I mean, that's a clear no-no.
A weird one, yeah. But I think he's probably just doing that because he loves Del so much and he's worried. Yeah, that's the only thing I can explain.
That's true. And we know how good Del is at convincing people to do things. So that makes sense. I said when Albert's talking sort of about the green parrot disease, there's something about his demeanour when he's talking about clutching at straws and stuff. It kind of reminds me of when he was speaking about Grandad's headstone. I don't know why it made me think about that in Hole in One at the end, where he's sort of more somber.
Yeah.
Like he's as worried about Del as he was about that. There's just, I just thought that reminded me of that. And that's it. That's all I have for that scene.
Okay. So we're going to move into the hospital scene, and we open on a busy ward. We get our first bit of comic relief when we see Del's pajamas. They seem very similar. He always likes these like silky ones with like Asian sort of dragon prints on them.
Yeah, I can only think of like 3 occasions when we see Del's pajamas. Can you name them all?
I mean, I definitely can think of the second time around.
Yeah.
I don't know. What other ones have we seen as pajamas in?
Modern Men. So far, we haven't seen
not so
this,
far.
But Modern
Okay,
Men,
I thought you were
the
just
green
saying
ones.
so far, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so far I think it's just those 2 times. But if anyone can think of another one, feel free to put it in the comments.
I'm pretty sure there are more because it's like an infamous thing that he does, right? Okay, yeah. So then we see that Del is telling Rodney, Cassandra, Albert about all the tests that they're doing on him, and it's a lot. He tells them that he has to fast for 24 hours and then immediately produces the bacon sandwich from under the covers.
You're not supposed to be eating that. I know, Rodney, but this fasting makes you hungry.
It will affect the results of your tests.
Give over, girl. It's only a bacon sandwich and a bit of brown sauce.
Exactly. I read it in one of the local papers somewhere. It's one of the few hospitals in the country that doesn't have a bacon sandwich detector.
Well, I think that's such a funny line. But yeah, again, that goes back to what I was saying, the old-fashioned kind of point of view. Rodney and Cassandra are taking it very seriously, whereas Albert and Del are like, oh, don't be silly, it's only a bacon sandwich. Yeah, the whole point is that you let your digestive tract not have any food in it. So the overall vibe here is that Del and Albert are in league, as usual. Perhaps, Cassandra supporting Rodney is very sweet. That's very new. But with Rodney, he regrets bringing in the items that Del asked for, such as the Coke with the Bacardi in it.
Listen, with the sort of measures Mike gives, there's less spirits in that than there was at our seance. Think about that. Wasn't last night the Packer seance night?
Nice segue.
So another gag about Mike's drinks, and now we get to hear what went wrong with the seance. So part of me feels like maybe some people don't like the episode because we don't actually get to see this happen. It's a little bit of an off-screen
thing.
I
did. I said I wonder why they chose to describe the seance night instead of showing it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it might have been kind of difficult to do this, like a whole pub full of punk rockers and little Elsie Partridge coming out in her hat.
Yeah, it would have been a lot of extra filming, a lot of extras needed. I mean, if I was going to put it in the episode, I'd have put it in the previous scene, and I wouldn't have had them in the afternoon having a drink in the Nag's Head. I'd have had them talking about Del in hospital at the night of the seance and then sort of linked it in with that.
I think that having the scene with the seance might have taken away from some of the more emotional end of this episode, so I kind of do understand.
Well, that's probably why people, because that seems to be something that's a contentious issue, right? In series 6, or like from series 6 onwards, is that some people maybe don't like the emotional sort of road that the series went down, because they sort of leaned into the drama a bit more. So maybe that's one of the criticisms.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if anybody wants to put reasons they don't like it in the comments. I know I can read them elsewhere, but there weren't like very many negative reviews on IMDb, which usually is where I get all of my negativity from. It's not like I want negativity, but I want to read people's criticisms as well as compliments of an episode. So, but Del ends up looking very upset after they tell him what went wrong at the seance. It was misunderstood, and like all these punk rockers thought the seance was a group, like an Iron Maiden type group.
Yeah. Then Elsie Partridge walked out in her hat. I weren't best pleased, Del.
So yeah,
to be fair, the way it's described, the image, I don't even need to see it. That's just so funny.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, they do a good job of describing it. So Del's very upset about that, and then not long after that, the visiting bell rings, and Albert and Cassandra leave, but we see that Del pulls Rodney back. Clearly, he wants to speak to him one-on-one, and this is sad and beautifully acted as always by David Jason and Nick Lynhurst.
What's that?
I'm scared, Rodney.
Oh, come on, Del. You're in hospital.
I know, that's why I'm scared.
I mean, can you think of a better place to be?
Yes. In a pub, down a market, anywhere but here. I think I know what's wrong with me.
Here is a pretty important bit of dialogue to go over. We mentioned it earlier, and it does get referenced a lot in positive and negative ways. And as I said earlier, I've never really seen a big fan of the show go too hard on this scene. Like, a big fan of the show understands what was meant to be conveyed in this scene. It's not meant to be an insult. It's not meant to be homophobic, as some people say. And there are definitely haters out there that come down hard on it, and I don't really usually like to give a voice to those kind of people, but it's important to debate the two different sides of this. So there's a somewhat well-known article in the Daily Star, and it doesn't just focus on this moment, but there's two moments it focuses on, and it was written by some guy called Joe Crutchley, who seems to have forgotten that times change, and accuses the scene of being borderline homophobic and says it's uncomfortable to watch. I'm going to continue with the little episode breakdown part of this scene first, but I will preface again, say all this by saying that this is not my opinion of it. I don't think it's uncomfortable to watch. I don't think most fans feel that it is, and they understand the character of Del well enough, as well as the time in which this episode was written, and understand that. So what I say when I describe what he says, I don't think what he says reflects the majority opinion.
No, I'd agree.
So Del very quietly suggests to Rodney, without saying the word, that he thinks he may have AIDS. The fact that they don't say the word, I think, is quite cleverly written, because anybody watching at this time just knows what they meant. Del wouldn't have wanted to say it, because it was almost like people felt like saying it meant you're going to catch it. It's a weird kind of mentality. And it fits perfectly.
Well, it was a very scary illness when it was first diagnosed, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the fact that Del is so scared of this illness fits perfectly well with who he is. And he thinks that the doctors think that he has it because they started asking questions about his dating history. So we again find out that Del lied. So the doctors won't suspect it because they don't know the truth. Del says he was like an amateur monk. But he says,
well, I've been laying here, thinking about my past.
Well, what's the point in depressing yourself?
I start to think about some of the birds that I knocked about with, and blimey, Rodney, some of them have been round the track more times than a lurcher.
I noted here a lurcher is a type of dog known for its speed and often used in racing, hence the reference being round the track. I did not know that.
No, me neither.
I wouldn't. Del mentions that he is fearful he may have caught AIDS from a gay hairdresser.
They give me some mush called Jason. So saying he's a bandit.
I don't believe... Del, you cannot go around making accusations against innocent people. Anyway, you can't catch it off a comb.
I've been saying he's nicked the back of my neck or something with a razor or something.
So, as long as he doesn't kiss it better, you're laughing.
So then Del goes on to say that he's considered Uncle Albert, having been around the world more times than Phineas Fogg, and Rodney with his computer viruses. Important to note that he says both of these things, and they're laughed off as jokes, and everybody just focuses on the fact that he thinks he might have AIDS. If this doesn't help show you the kind of mentality Del has, but also the kind of mentality that anybody who's ill has sometimes when they don't know what's wrong with them, those kind of back up that argument. So Rodney ends this discussion by providing Del exactly what he needs here, which is a reality check. And anybody who's been ill or has any similarities to Del in terms of fear or illness, hypochondria, weakness, they can understand this kind of irrational jumping to conclusions and letting fear make you seem a little bit crazy.
I understand your fears and concerns, right? But you're just letting your imagination run away with you. If you had that, or anything as serious as that, they would have known by now. These doctors are experts, you know.
Del seems very much to be calmed down by Rodney, which is incredibly heartwarming. And before Rodney departs, they have a little moment before Del is left alone. So let's just go over our thoughts on that little bit, get it out the way. There actually is, interestingly, a reference in the official Inside Storybook by Steve Clark that says, Del's illness is a mystery, but he mistakenly thinks he's got AIDS. It turns out it's all down to too many curries and pina coladas. Once again, the episode gave John Sullivan a chance to show his ability to combine pathos with comedy. At the time, AIDS awareness campaigns were running non-stop, and that was a great deal of misinformation circulating in times of how people could have been infected. In this episode, Del reckons he might have caught it because he went to a gay hairdresser, allowing John Sullivan to make an important point, but not in a preachy, political correct way. So I think that kind of nails it, to be honest. Like, we were too young to have experienced the misinformation, although I think modern day equivalent may be kind of like COVID a little bit. It's the only thing that we will have experienced that might have been anything like it. People get very confused, they often appear ignorant in times like this. The media is fuel for the fire, and a character like Del, who is already a little bit, he has expressed homophobic views in the past. It is part of his character. Yeah. We've heard him say things, and accused, use the word bandit and nufter and stuff, things that are not commonly used today. And you need the balance of Del and Rodney to have this idea come across properly. So remember that this book was written in 1998, which was hardly a super woke era. So John Sullivan was actually highlighting a very important point back in the very late 80s. And in 1998, we can even see that they don't think that it was outdated to have that view. So no. The article that I was referring to really does zero in on this scene and accuses it of being the most uncomfortable bit of telly he's ever watched.
Wow. It's quite a statement to make.
This may reflect a modern kind of point of view, possibly from some viewers, like modern day, but it doesn't reflect many people that I've ever spoken to.
I mean, this is the thing that bothers me a lot about sort of modern, I guess, issues when they're discussed in TV shows. I'm going to use another example here from Coronation Street, the era when Todd Grimshaw came out as gay, and you had a character like Les Battersby on the show, right? Del in this scene is the Les Battersby, where he's sort of the one, as you said, being a little bit ignorant about the situation, and Rodney is the one who is grounding him and correcting him. So I hate the fact that now it feels like you can't ever portray anyone to be ignorant or imperfect in their views on TV without saying, oh, the show is racist because you have a racist character. It's like, no, racist people exist, or homophobic people exist, ignorant people exist, like people that just need a little bit of guidance and stuff like this. These characters are real people, and people like that exist. So we should have them in the TV show, and then you can counter their character with someone who's like, oh, actually, this isn't right what you're saying, without the show being labeled as being these things just because there's a character in it who portrays those things. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
I just think this is a really crazy thing that we've gotten into now, where I just feel like you can't have a bad character or a character that's ignorant or, you know, mean or anything without people getting offended by it. It's like their views are meant to be offensive, and then you're meant to watch it and challenge their views and see that these people do still exist. And again, in my opinion, this is a very mild, the fact that they don't even say AIDS, I mean, obviously it's heavily implied, but I think they're very sensitive about the way that they address this. And as you say, Del's character, it's very in keeping for him to be misinformed. And again, Rodney correct him. This is kind of the dynamic between them all the time, that Del doesn't know and Rodney corrects. So I don't understand where this offense comes from. Like, that seems to me ridiculous, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, so even go forward to a couple of years later when the AIDS discussion comes up between Del and Raquel, there's a great quote when Raquel says, "I have never heard such ignorant and pig-headed views as yours," like highlighting that Del has ridiculous views that are, you know, viewed to be...
You just get him on politics, Raquel.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of Del's character. And honestly, yeah, this backs up the viewpoint that the scene, in a way, is kind of progressive for its time. A lot of people feel this. From John Sullivan's point of view, first of all, it was very brave to put a very serious and very current issue into a comedy sitcom. And using Del as the usual kind of way that Del is used, as, you know, the perhaps ignorant one here, and having Rodney reason with him and provide the informed point of view, it totally makes sense that Del would think this way. That's in keeping with his character, and that does not make Del a bad person, because even though Del is a flawed character, he's always essentially been shown as a good character with good heart and good intention.
Yeah, and something else you mentioned is he is scared. When you're scared, you think crazy things. You think the worst case scenarios, and you think of irrational things. Yeah,
and a lot of people in that day and age would have been having the same fears, honestly.
Yeah.
It does just reflect, exactly like we said in Chain Gang, about how it looks like Del's being homophobic about not wanting to be considered to be gay with Boise. But actually, it reflected the time they were living in. It wasn't safe to be openly gay in London. So you have to consider the times, and like all these people who want to change old shows, you know, what's the point? Do you not want to learn anything about the way things have changed and grown? Like, you just want to...
No, and again, like, if you take away all these sort of characters who have these flaws, as you said, you have no conflict. Everyone's just perfect in your shows, and what fun is that to watch?
No fun.
Exactly. That's why I don't watch any modern stuff.
So, yeah, following that, Rodney leaves and we see Del left alone with his thoughts in the bed. And he suddenly gets a sharp pain, and Rodney runs back and shows that he does have his own irrational fears. This is where we see Rodney's vulnerability. He's very scared that Del's going to die.
Hold on, Del. Don't you die. Don't you bloody die.
I'm not going to die, you plonker. I've just sat on my bacon sandwich.
That's a great way to end such a vulnerable scene.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
So, I know we mostly discussed everything, probably, but do you have any thoughts on that scene, dude, that you haven't already said?
I just wanted to ask, shouldn't Elsie have gone to hospital if the riot sent her into such a long trance? Because Albert says she was still in a trance when he went round the next morning. I'm like, Elsie should probably be in hospital.
I don't think you go into hospital for a trance.
I don't know, but she's clearly traumatized, so I think she needs some sort of help. Albert just left her there. I really like Albert's quote.
I hate these places. Death and sickness everywhere.
I couldn't agree more, to be honest. I feel the same way about hospitals. And Cassandra has clearly forgiven Del after everything that happened in The Unlucky Winner Is. So that's nice.
Yeah. Well, she seems happy with him at the end of Unlucky Winner Is.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, you know, clearly all water under the bridge. And I just said, again, same as you, the scene is so touching between Del and Rodney. David Jason really showing his acting chops here again. I mean, he does, all the time, but yeah, in these vulnerable moments, it's a side of his acting we don't get to see often, which is great. I just want to check, because I always worry that I'm getting it wrong. Obviously, I know they're talking about AIDS, but when they start the dialogue and he says, I think I've got, and he goes, no. He's talking about cancer, right?
I don't think I don't know what he's implying there. I just think it's funny that
says, I think I know what's wrong with me. It's something serious. So the only other thing that I can think that Rodney was thinking in that moment was like, oh my God, it's cancer. And then Del's like, no, it's AIDS. And it's just implied. That's what I always thought here. And I'm not sure. Let us know in the comments if you think that's the case.
The way that I've read that is that it's joke because he doesn't say anything, and he goes, you mean no? Yeah, that. I think it's a joke because they don't say anything, but they still know two blanks that they're talking about. I don't know
that's what I mean.
Is,
so I put in the blank, I put cancer in the other blank because I assume that's the first thing that he would think. If you say something seriously wrong, you'd think cancer first. So that was why I thought it was cancer. And the end of the scene is absolutely hilarious. I love it.
Yeah.
That's all I had for that scene.
Earlier, I wrote that this happens later that night, but it must be at least the next day because they're feeding Del because he was supposed to fast.
Yeah, so, it's the next day, I think. I guess lunchtime.
Yeah. So Del is not eating his food. The nurse takes it away, and as she's leaving, she reveals a man standing in the peripheral of Del, looking quite casual under his white coat. It's
Robbie Meadows, you old git.
Please, Del, not in front of the staff.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Dr. Meadows, you old git.
Dr. Meadows was played by Ewan Stewart, who back in those days had a lot of bit parts, but one of which was in The Professionals, just to mention that. But went on to play First Officer Murdoch in Titanic, amongst many other roles. He has a huge IMDb credit list, too big for me to go over. And the script describes Dr. Meadows as he is in his mid to late 30s, a dedicated doctor who relaxes with the occasional punch-up. Not 100% sure what that means, but we can see from the off that Dr. Meadows has a very good sense of humor and that he has a history with Del. We find out that he's now in charge of Del's case, which doesn't seem to concern Del at all, but he quickly sees that his lies will not hold up now.
How come you're in charge?
It was an accident, really. I just happened to be talking to some colleagues when the name Derek Trotter cropped up. So I asked if I could read your GP's report and have a look at your tests. I was amazed. I found myself reading about this non-smoking, teetotal, celibate, vegetarian health freak. I thought, can this be the same Derek Trotter that I know and begrudgingly admire? That uptight, wheeling-dealing pina colada lout. The Castella King. The curry connoisseur. The same man who's lived his life on nervous tension, fried bread and doubtful women.
And was it?
Yeah, it was. Why did you lie to your GP, Del?
Del is afraid, but gets the moral of the story pretty soon. He actually caused all of this speculation and confusion himself by lying about his lifestyle.
Yeah.
So Dr. Meadows goes on to explain.
We now know what's wrong with you, Del.
All right. Let's hear the worst. I can take it. I'm not frightened. Don't pull any punches. I want it straight from the shoulder.
Yeah, I think it's best in the long run. Well, basically, Derek, there's nothing wrong with you.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. Thank Allah. Thank Buddha. Thank you, God.
Relieved, eh?
Well, you know.
So here Dr. Meadows goes on to explain that Delboy has IBS and says it was caused by his lifestyle, and highlights at the end in particular that stress is a major contributory factor in the illness. Here he says that he called the council and arranged for them to give him some breathing room on the rent. And I have to say, is he not the best doctor in the world? Because I don't think doctors do things like that. And I'm sure a lot of them would like to, but it's always depicted in TV shows that doctors can do things like this. But in reality, they're lucky if they get time to go to the toilet between patients.
Well, I also said, would the council really delay, rent because a doctor told them to back off?
A doctor would probably be able to request stuff like that in writing, but I don't know. I mean, maybe in the 80s things were different. I'm just be amazed. But also, I know that in this day and age and in this country, this would never happen. I don't know about England.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would work.
I think maybe, it's quite possible, and it is implied because they have a history that maybe Dr. Meadows was able to go a little bit the extra mile here to help Del out. But if this is something that really does happen in England, and let us know if you've ever had a story where a doctor has done something nice like this for you, like got the council to give you breathing room on your rent. Because I know that doctors can write letters to sort of excuse people out of certain things, like work and stuff, but I just never thought that this, maybe we're just looking too much into it and this isn't realistic, but I just wonder if it is.
Well, I'm not being funny as well, but surely you would need to get the patient's sort of permission to make those calls as well. I know that Albert sort of told him about stuff over the phone, you already mentioned earlier, which is already sort of breaking protocol, because it should be all the patient telling you this stuff and not sort of a family member. But then he didn't even speak to Del before he was like, oh, I'll just call the council and ask them to give you breathing room. Like, what if Del was a very prideful person, which he actually is?
I mean, he is,
and he was like, oh, wish you hadn't done that. Like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, they're all going to know now that I'm on the bones of my backside. I mean, Del often does say, I don't want people to know.
Yeah.
And he said it at the beginning of this episode as well. So I don't know. I feel like if you were going to do something like that, which, as you say, is a very nice thing to do, you would need to ask the patient before you went ahead and did it.
Yeah. The only thing is like Del doesn't seem to mind that Dr. Meadows did this, and that's probably because when it comes to being a professional doctor, Del does trust and allow him to know this private stuff about him without it affecting his image. It's funny that Dr. Meadows tells him that yuppies suffer from IBS, and Del's actually proud to have IBS. It goes back to him saying PMA earlier in the episode. He was kind of right, although not PMA. But yeah, Del, Dr. Meadows gives all the advice to Del that he needs: make changes to his lifestyle, take some drugs, and above all, relax. And he tells Del that he can leave. So Del's just out of there, and Del's very happy. Dr. Meadows exits, and this is where we get quite an emotional end to the scene. Oh. Del is left alone in bed, and he breaks his cool guy act for just a moment as he lets his feeling out.
I knew there was nothing wrong with me. Silly old sod.
So here we get another little bit of a bit of an awe from the audience. It is very sad because, like you say, it's the first time that we really see tears. I mean, I do think you see them in Strange Relations, but I could be wrong. I feel like he mostly just wipes them away.
He goes to, and then he stops himself in Strange Relations, which is in keeping with what he's just said to Rodney, that he doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. So a quote here, just to end the scene, from John Sullivan, from the lovely Jubbly book. With someone like David acting in a scene like that, you know you've got gold dust, because David is so good. The moment when he cries, when he realizes there's nothing wrong with them, to pull it off like that is absolutely brilliant. Okay, so what are your thoughts on that Dr. Meadows interaction?
So first of all, I just wanted to say hospital food, yuck, I agree. When I was in hospital, it was disgusting. I didn't eat any of the hospital food. And when she said, I'll have to tell matron, I was hoping Hattie Jakes would walk around the corner.
Yeah, I'm not frightened, the old cow.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, Del and Robbie seem to be really good friends, and I wish we saw them together more. Their dynamic's very natural and endearing. So yeah, shame we only see him this one time. And I love that Del is like sort of loving his negative description from Robbie. Yeah. He's like the Castella King. Like, he's loving all those things. It's quite funny. It's like he's proud of his lifestyle, which, is again in keeping with the character. I've got to say, I think the tension is built up very well in this scene, especially when sort of he says, we know what's wrong with you, and how long sort of they take to say what's wrong. That is, as an audience member watching this, for the first time, obviously I don't remember the first time I saw this and how I felt, but I'd imagine you actually could think there was something wrong with Del in that moment, and it is quite sort of a tense moment. So I think that's built up very well. And the audience is pretty silent for this whole scene, actually. Even the laughs are very mild. And again, it's quite interesting because you always assume that the audience is there laughing along, and actually the audience was so quiet that I actually heard a change in the background sort of static audio. Like I heard it go and then like cut off. Like it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, which again, kudos to the tension in the scene and the acting from those two guys. And then I love that Del thanks all the gods just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do that if I was religious. I'd be like, I don't know which religion's true, so I'm just going to thank every single one of them just to cover my back. And I do vaguely remember when Fran was diagnosed with IBS that it was very serious. I remember certainly we took it very seriously because she used to be in a lot of pain and sort of writhing around on her bed, I remember. So, yeah, I remember it being considered quite serious. back then at least.
I mean, IBS, can have very different like levels of seriousness. Some people get it mild, some people get it serious. Yeah.
Yeah, I just adore the reaction of Del at the end. You already said it. It's so vulnerable. It's so beautifully acted. Yeah, you really have so much empathy for Del in that moment. It's brilliant. And yeah, like you do that when you get sort of that relief, even though it's a good moment. Like tears are very natural in that sort of moment when you're just like, oh my God, like you thought it was something so bad and then it's not. Like I remember when Monkey, my cat, went in for surgery and I was so scared. I was so terrified when I got the phone call to say she was all right. Like I cried because I was like, oh my God. Like, yeah, it's such an interesting emotion to portray, and he does it very well. Yeah, that's all I had for that scene.
Okay, yeah, so we'll move on to the final scene, and it's really very short. It's only 2 minutes long, this final scene. So this is our conclusion scene. Del is convalescing, and Albert brings him a breakfast tray from the kitchen.
Yeah, Del. Breakfast.
Ah, good. What is it?
It's muesli.
Blimey, it looks like something that's been swept out of a pigeon loft.
Well, you can at least try it.
Ugh. It tastes like something that's been swept out of a pigeon loft.
So we know that Del is having a hard time adjusting to his new lifestyle here, and we also know that he doesn't actually stick to it, because I think after this you never see him eating healthy food again, right? And I know he goes back to eating. So like, yeah.
Well, Raquel makes him eat a grapefruit.
Raquel tries to make Del eat a healthy lifestyle, but we know that future Del just goes back to exactly how he was. So it's nice that they do point out that this lifestyle would catch up on somebody like Del, but they actually don't continue with it, which I guess might have ruined the show if Del's all of a sudden like, yeah, I'll have a mineral water.
Yeah, true. He does it occasionally to sort of show off in front of people, but other than that, he doesn't do it.
So, he gets up and heads over to his signature cigar jar and says,
how many cigars did that doctor say that I could have a day?
She said 3.
How many have I had?
4.
So then Rodney arrives home, and here's where I notice his camo coat. So was he wearing his camo coat in the pub?
Yes, he's wearing his camo coat in the pub.
I did not register that. So yeah, I think I said back in Series 5 that that's the last time we see his camo coat. Oh, that's wrong. Although I do think this one does look different.
Yeah, it looks newer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks newer and more well-fitted. So I don't think it's the same one, but it's the same style. So after a bit of an argument about Del and his well-being, he says,
You feeling relaxed?
Yes, I'm relaxed all over, thank you.
Good. Because I've got some really great news.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
I'm getting married.
That is the end credits. So do you have any comments on that final scene, dude?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think it's lovely Albert looking after Del. Again, Albert taking up that sort of mom and dad role in the house. I think it's lovely. And 3 cigars a day is still quite a lot, right?
It is, but if you're cutting down, though...
Yeah, but still, that is quite a lot. So Del should be happy with that. And also, they cost quite a lot. I know Del gets everything on the slate, but even so, that would set you back quite a bit if you were smoking like those proper big cigars all the time. Del would be a nightmare of a patient. I mean, you can see that from just this very small snippet. But yeah, he wouldn't be fun to look after. And I just said I wonder why John Sullivan chose not to show the proposal and again sort of do it like this. Because that would have been a very emotional moment, I'd have imagined, like Rodney proposing to Cassandra. So it's interesting, maybe because this episode focusing obviously on Del and there was so much emotion in that, he chose to kind of not put that in. But yeah, presumably Rodney was planning to propose and then he had to plan the proposal. He did it in a romantic way. It's just interesting that we never got to see that.
Yeah, I mean, that might just be because the series was so rushed. It might be because they are broke and then they would have had to figure out a way to explain how Rodney could afford an engagement ring. I don't know.
Yeah,
they focus a lot on the money issue in the next one because Rodney has to come up with that £2,000 for the deposit.
Yes,
so
true.
It might be because they just didn't want to focus on that because they knew they had a whole episode for the wedding, and it might have taken away from the storyline of this episode because it's not like it would have been the first thing on Rodney's mind while Del was sick. So I also like the fact that it comes completely out of the blue here.
It does, yeah. I mean, I didn't know they were that far along in their relationship, but I also think that maybe marriage was a bit different in those days as well. Like, I don't know. Like, I'd assume someone would have to be together for, like, at least 2 years now before they'd even consider getting engaged.
I mean, but though, I don't know, it's depicted in all different ways. But as we said in The Unlucky Winner Is, it's quite interesting that they, you know, it implies that they haven't slept together yet, but they're already saying that they love each other. So this is a very different world, I guess, that we're living in nowadays.
Yeah, that's all I had. I think the ending is very impactful and important, obviously, because it takes us into the next episode. So yeah, great episode.
Yeah, it's a good one. So yeah, if we have nothing else, we could move on to our awards section.
We've won! Oh, what are you going on about, Rogers?
We've won!
Okay, so as always, we have 3 awards to announce this week, and we're going to start with our Plonker of the Week.
Are you two going to be plonkers for the rest of your lives?
So for Plonker of the Week, we will each nominate a Plonker, and we'll discuss and decide who wins. So dude, who's your Plonker this week?
I hate to always do this, but I feel like I should nominate Del, because...
I nominated Del.
He really did... Yeah, he did really bring all this on himself. I mean, honestly, I do feel like Del is always just going to be the Plonker of the series because he always wins so many Plonker awards, but he does so many good things as well.
But yeah, I said he lied to the doctor. That's the reason I put him as the Plonker as well.
And he also, you know, I don't really think it's that bad that he's trying to do the fake seance thing to make money. I don't really care about that. But I think, yeah, the fact that he brought all of this suffering on himself and all of his relatives and stuff because he was... I mean, fear is real, you know, it's a genuine reason to not want to do something. But still, all those lies took a lot of effort.
Yeah, I'm surprised he remembered all of them.
I mean, it was basically just make himself out to be like the perfect patient, right? But
well, it looks like it's pretty conclusive. So Del is Plonker of the Week.
Not me, Doc. I'm like a walking grow bag.
Okay, and this week, Jenny will award the best line of the episode, and I will award the best moment. So, dude, what have you chosen for the best line?
Well, as usual, I didn't do too much prep, but I feel like my favourite line of the episode is the line from Dr. Shahid. Do you have any trouble passing water? I had a dizzy spell going over Tower Bridge once.
I put that down as a potential one as well.
What are your
I also put... Yeah, I have quite a few. So I put he's low on something. But again, that's like the delivery, not necessarily the line being funny. Also, calm down, Aubrey. Again, the delivery, very good, very cheeky. Also, my guilty one, like you, Elsie Partridge is a medium. Better whip right down to then. Bit of a treat, that will.
I thought of that too.
And also, don't you die. Don't you bloody die. I'm not going to die, you plonker. Just sat on my bacon sandwich. And I also put Mr. Trotter, nice head stripped to the waist. I meant the top half.
Yeah, they're all great.
So yeah, those are my ones I picked out.
Yeah.
Quite a few good lines in this episode. So, but yeah, we'll go with yours because I also picked yours and put it in my list. So we'll go with, do you have any trouble passing water? I had a dizzy spell going over Tower Bridge once.
It also works as a one-liner as well.
It does. That's true. Yes. So yeah, I agree.
So what have you chosen for best moment or your favourite moment?
So yeah, I kind of picked scenes, like, as I said, because they're like skits, right? So I got the doctors, I got the seance, and then I'm getting married, just because it's, you know, important moment. But also Marlene announcing her pregnancy. So I had 4 to choose from. For me, I guess I would choose... The most memorable scene from this episode is either the seance or the doctor's office. So I'm a bit torn which one to pick between.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those two.
I love both of those as well. They're both very significant scenes.
I guess I will pick the seance just because more of the recurring characters are in it, and I love the scenes with all the characters in. Not that the doctor scene isn't amazing, but yeah, I think I would choose the best moment as the seance.
The whole seance.
Scene. All of the seance.
Okay, yeah, that's your choice. The whole scene is the best moment this week.
The whole scene is the best moment. Again, I'm just thinking what people remember, and like the seance. This is the only time they do a seance in the whole of Only Fools and Horses, so I feel like, yes, this seance. But if you want to pick a specific moment from the seance, I think it's got to be the I am here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, the seance is great, so it's fine to have the whole scene as a great moment.
So if there's nothing else, drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for this week. Join us in 2 weeks' time when we'll be discussing Series 6, Episode 6, the finale of Series 6, Little Problems. Until then,
I got the trouble and come along. Well, I could dreamy and life's a song. In Honolulu across the sea, making wicky wacky down in Waikiki.
Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Please like the video and subscribe. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, iHeart, Instagram, Facebook, and please use the link in the description for our Buy Me a Coffee. Bonjour.